A little cooler around some coasts. Goodbye.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial.
With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers.
I agree.
And that's precisely what I'll get.
Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and this is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threat and so on.
Our job is to do what's in the best interest of our country.
You made my argument for me.
My guest and I tackle the issues that really matter, with a sharp take on every story.
I'm hearing it up and down the country. That was a beginning, not an end.
Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and this is GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQs live here on GB News.
Whenever Parliament is in session on a Wednesday at midday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions. We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQs live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
Good morning to you. It's 6 o'clock on Friday, the 10th of May. Today, the Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer is set to unveil plans to use terror laws in order to combat small boat crossings.
Brexit architect Dominic Cummings plans to create a new party that he hopes will replace the Conservatives.
A judge denies Donald Trump's request for a mistrial in his hush money case as Stormy Daniels concludes her testimony.
3 Boeing planes crash in 2 days, calling into question the aircraft manufacturer's safety record.
And don't forget to get microchips for your cats. A new change in the law could see owners fined if they don't.
Good morning. It was always a Herculean task for Aston Villa in Greece last night, but their Europa League conference defeat to Olympiacos mean there are no British clubs left in European competitions now. Meanwhile, in the tennis, Rafa Nadal makes progress at the Italian Open in Rome.
Morning. The fine weather's going to stick around for a little while yet, but it's not set to last through the whole weekend. I'll have more on that coming up.
Good morning to you. I'm Stephen Dix.
And I'm Ellie Costello, and this is Breakfast on GB News.
Now, good news, everybody.
Tell me.
I'm going to do a Bev Turner.
Oh, yeah. What's Bev Turner?
Which is first, and talk about COVID.
Oh, are you?
She likes to talk about COVID.
She does, yeah, she does.
Gives us something to do in her time off. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'll let you know I'm jabbed up to the eyeballs with all that. Well, it's up to you, whatever you choose to do. However, here's the good news in The Sun this morning.
Yep.
That a cuppa, it claims, cup of tea, could kill COVID in the mouth.
What, because it's so hot?
I don't know. But it's I don't know why it's tea and not anything else. But anyway, it says tea can be an additional layer of intervention that patients and their families can easily adopt as a routine to be healthy and avoid things like COVID.
Apparently, black tea was the most effective, 99.9%.
How can you read that from there? That's impressive.
I've had my laser eye, haven't I?
Ah, there you go.
My eyesight is better than 2020. Do you know that?
Is it
Did I tell
really?
you that? Yeah. Honestly, they said they were staggered by how much I could see.
You are the people's
so
princess.
I'm over there. I can see, I can read.
You're the people's princess. You're the optometrist's dream. You are.
Yeah, we're better than 2020
Anyway, you just
vision
need to have a swig of that.
Oh.
And just in case you're infected with anything.
Oh, not sure about that.
Yeah, that's nice, that one.
Too milky, no. It hasn't been brewed long enough, but yeah. OK, so thank you.
You're
You've cured me.
You're cured. So if you're worried about COVID, go and have a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
Cup of tea.
Cup of tea. Yeah.
So there you go.
I like one at this time in the morning anyway, so that's good. Double benefit.
A double benefit. Anyway, I just saw that in The Sun, thought it was quite interesting this morning.
Yeah.
Oh, plus, we were talking about insults yesterday.
And how they're all going out of
fashion.
Fashion, yeah.
Here we go. This is in The Sun today. It's the same story, basically. They're just a day behind everybody else. But what they have listed, which is different, is the ones that are now in. Now, you mentioned Karen yesterday.
Which means to be overly demanding and moaning a lot, right?
But also basic.
Basic, yeah, to be basic.
Which makes fun of those who like things like mainstream music, fashion trends.
I get called basic sometimes.
Delulu?
Delulu means to be delusional, yes. To be delulu, we're quite delulu.
Oh, I'm covering. Extra?
Yeah, extra, I get called that too.
What's
it means
that mean?
to, I don't know, to...
So like be over the top.
Be over the top, yes, that's good, yes.
Jit?
Oh, I don't know that one.
So jit is an insult used on someone who is inexperienced. Mid?
Oh, to be mid is like meh. Mid.
Right.
How are you feeling, mid?
NPC?
Don't know what that means.
A non-player character, someone who can't think for themselves. What about being salty?
Oh, that's like being a bit sassy, bit rude. Got a bit of an attitude, I'd say.
Simp?
Simp, yeah, that means to be a bit of a wet blanket.
Right, and sus?
Suspicious, yeah. Oh, I'm quite good at this game. We can play this game more often. Did you know any of those?
No, well, salty, I guess. That's been around for a bit. But the rest of them, no, being a bit extra or a bit mid. Ah, there you go.
We would be a bit extra, I'd say.
We're a bit extra?
Yeah, we can be a bit dramatic and over the top.
Speak for yourself. I'm chilled out like you won't believe.
No, he is very chill. We were discussing that this morning, how chill you are.
Yeah.
And I've just seen this as well on the front page of The Times, which I think is very interesting. Apparently, truancy, parents working from home, have contributed to an unacceptable rise in pupils skipping school on Fridays. This, according to Gillian Keegan. She just says, basically, school absences have jumped up by 20% on Fridays. Parents just pulling their kids out of school, apparently.
So it's parents doing it?
Yeah. On a Friday, going off for a long weekend.
Well, it's totally unacceptable, really.
20% of Fridays and unauthorised holidays have jumped up 25%. This is since COVID.
Yeah. But then you sort of think, well, I suppose they've managed before with less school, so Maybe it's just taking the pressure
I think that's
off.
what it is. I think parents just think, well, they managed before and they've turned out OK.
Well, if you're keeping your kids off school today just because you fancy a long weekend, let us know. We won't read your name out in case you get into trouble. But gbnews.com/yoursay, or if you want to talk about anything else this morning.
Yeah, then do get in touch.
If you're feeling a bit extra.
Or mid.
a bit delulu. That's mad.
Yeah, get in touch. We'd love to hear from you, Jamie.
Anyway, should we talk about small boats?
Let's.
Because this is sort of what we've been waiting to hear for a long time, is what the Labour Party would do. Well, it's going to launch plans to tackle the small boat crisis today.
Well, in a major speech, Sir Keir Starmer will unveil proposals for stronger new counter-terror powers that will effectively treat people smugglers like terrorists.
Well, his plans will be supported by about 1,000 additional officers recruited by MI5.
Well, to do this, Labour say they will spend £75 million, equating to a year that would have been spent on sending migrants to Rwanda.
And let's talk to our senior political commentator, Nigel Nelson. Morning, Nigel. What are we to make of this?
Well, it's a start in the right direction. I mean, what you're talking about, as you just said, is changing the system whereby counter-terror laws can be used against the people smugglers. What this means is that even if you just suspect somebody of people smuggling, you can actually move in. So that will mean, for instance, stop and searches at the border. They could have their mobile phone seized, so you can check their contacts. They could have homes searched. You're drafting in spies rather than just police to actually deal with it. So it sounds like that this could be the start of a major crackdown on the people smugglers.
Except, Nigel, in all the sort of reports that we see, it's not the smugglers that are getting caught or coming over, is it? We've got an issue with the people. The smugglers, although they're the crux of the problem, well, they're not wandering about in the UK left, right and centre, are they? They tend to be operating on the continent.
No, a lot of them are, you're absolutely right, but some of them are also operating over here, and there have been arrests of people smugglers in this country, and a number have been sentenced to prison, having been caught. So yes, you're right that one of the things you will need to make this work is cooperation with European agencies. Part of the idea here is to have officers embedded in Europol, which is something that we lost during Brexit. And the idea is you'd have intelligence sharing between European countries. So yes, you can only arrest the ones that we find here, but you could actually ask European law enforcement agencies to catch the ones over there.
Nigel, you just alluded to it there, but this is going to be criticised, isn't it? It is already in the papers this morning that this is just the Labour Party wanting closer ties with the EU again.
Well, I mean, the whole thing is closer ties are actually a good thing. I mean, apart from the trade we do with Europe, it doesn't mean reversing Brexit or anything like that. What it does mean is cooperating with our European neighbours. We're already giving the French £500 million to help us tackle the small boats. So the idea of a bit more cooperation is probably best. I mean, even Natalie Elphicke, but before she defected to Labour and is the Dover MP on the front line of this, she was talking about diplomatic moves with the French as probably one of the better ways of tackling illegal immigration.
But all this involves scrapping the Rwanda plan, even if it's proving to be working. That's one thing to get rid of something that isn't working, but if it is, why would you scrap it?
Well, you won't. The people who actually end up in Rwanda, if the flights ever get off the ground, would stay there. So you won't be scrapping that part of it. What you're doing is you're spending money more effectively. The Rwanda plan is costing over £500 million. We only have an agreement to send 300 migrants to Rwanda. So that's 1 in 100 of the people who are crossing the channel. So by all accounts, Rwanda is just not good value for money. It costs nearly £2 million per migrant. Now, you could keep one of those in a hotel here for 30 years with that kind of money. The argument that Keir Starmer is making today is that he can use money better and more effectively.
But would they really scrap the Rwanda plan if it was seen to be working? I mean, Rishi Sunak already says it's doing its job as a deterrent, as we're seeing migrant numbers go up in the Republic of Ireland.
Yeah, there is an argument over Ellie, over whether or not that Ireland is actually caused by Rwanda. I mean, certainly a lot of the
Irish think so.
Yeah, the Irish do, but they've yet to produce some decent figures to show exactly the causal effect there. So, yes, it's true that some migrants who are ending up in Ireland are saying that Rwanda is the one that's actually making them go there. Well, they would say that because Ireland, the Irish High Court has deemed Britain an unsafe country because of Rwanda. So these people can't be sent back to Britain under Irish law. I think that when it comes down to deterrent value, you have to look at the actual boat crossings, which is what we're trying to deter. And we're talking about 8,500 people who've crossed the Channel so far this year, and there's no sign of them stopping.
I don't know if it's a stroke of genius or absolutely stupid, Nigel, that this is all being done in Natalie Elphicke's constituency, because she's such a poisonous figure to so many on the Labour benches.
Well, it's no coincidence it's happening in Dover. That is the front line of the small boats problem. So, I mean, that would be the right place for Keir Starmer to announce this policy.
Yeah, but clearly, it's all been timed with this defection.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Natalie Elphicke's defection didn't happen overnight. There were long conversations with Labour leaders about her defection. So you're absolutely right. This is planned. We're in election year. That's politics.
Nigel, whilst we've got you, wanted to ask you about Dominic Cummings, the re-emergence of Mr Cummings and a new party to rival the Tories.
Yeah, he's talking about a start-up party. It won't make any difference to this coming election because he's not going to be, even if he gets this off the ground, he's not going to be standing any candidates this time round. So what he's looking at is what happens if the Tory vote collapses completely and we end up with very few Tory MPs. He says he can get a new party to fill the gap. I'm a bit sceptical about this. New parties often don't last very long. If you remember, Change UK came and went a few years ago. But, I mean, I would never underestimate Dominic Cummings, so we would have to see. But it has no effect on this coming election.
No, well, just a quick thought, Nigel, though, on all of this, which I find very odd. We're talking about someone you say you shouldn't underestimate him. He's proved to be very powerful, very influential. Never a man who's held public office at this level. No one voted him in. No one said he should have a big say on how this country should be run, and yet he seems to think he has.
Yeah, I think there's a certain sense of entitlement about Dom, where he does think he should be running the country, and probably in Boris Johnson's day, for a while, he actually was. He is very clever. I mean, I think that Brexit wouldn't have happened without his very clever slogan, "Take back control." That seemed to actually sort of touch the emotional nerve and make people vote for Brexit. So, yes, he's clever, but no, you're absolutely right, Stephen. He's never been elected to any office. If he does, in fact, go ahead and start a new party, one presumes he will stand for election.
Well, yeah. Nigel, good to see you. Thanks very much indeed.
Well, let us know what you think about any of the above. gbnews.com/yoursay.
Now, the former porn star Stormy Daniels has concluded her testimony at Donald Trump's hush money trial, fighting off all inquiries into her account of the alleged sexual encounter between her and the former president.
Well, it follows a scathing attack by the judge who blamed Trump's lawyers for letting Daniels describe lurid details as he denied Trump a mistrial for the second time this week.
Let's get more from US political analyst Eric Ham. Well, look, he got a little bit spicy, Eric. I guess that's no surprise. But how did Stormy Daniels actually come off in all of this?
Well, it remains to be seen what the jury will think of her, but we know that Donald Trump's lawyers went after her today, and it was a very intense session. Of course, we know that she testified for over 6 hours on the stand. And what the judge said was pretty striking. He says that, look, you actually brought this up when you said in your opening that Donald Trump did not have an affair with this woman. So therefore, it was only right for her to go into detail to describe her relationship, to actually paint for the jury that, in fact, this did happen. And he did say that, and he admonished Donald Trump's lawyers that they could have actually objected to many of the things that were said by Stormy Daniels. I do believe that depending on what happens with the verdict, I do believe that we perhaps will see an appeal by Donald Trump's lawyers looking specifically at some of the things that, of course, we heard from Stormy Daniels during her time when she provided testimony.
Did we hear anything new from Stormy Daniels in this testimony, or was it more about adding context to this case?
No, we did not. This was the first time, of course, that we actually heard her at a criminal trial under oath actually testifying. And of course, again, the jury, and I think that's the most important thing we have to recognize here, they actually got a chance to see how, in fact, she would hold up to the scrutiny being cross-examined by Donald Trump's lawyers about this relationship that she had with Donald Trump. But again, this is a case about falsifying business records. And so while we know that it was definitely a spectacle to hear from Stormy Daniels, the central issue of this case is, did, in fact, Donald Trump actually falsify business records? It's clear that Donald Trump actually paid Stormy Daniels $130,000, but that's not what he's on trial for, and that is not actually what he's being tried for, and what he will be convicted for ultimately. And right now, I think the prosecution still has this burden that they have to actually show that Donald Trump did, in fact, falsify these records.
Why was there another call from his team for a mistrial?
Well, again, I think that's pretty much par for the course for a defense that would actually ask for a mistrial. I think what we saw today was they thought that there were some holes in Stormy Daniels' testimony, which is why they believe that much of the information that she provided not only was prejudicial, but also I think what we saw from them is that they think that she went over the line in describing this relationship she had with Donald Trump.
And Eric, just briefly, because we are running out of time, but how would you say this is affecting Donald Trump personally and in the polls?
Well, in the polls, it's having a tremendous effect. We are now seeing that Joe Biden is leading in the polls in another key battleground state of Wisconsin. And so the more Donald Trump stays off the campaign trail, the more difficult it is for him to be able to find some distance between him and Joe Biden as we head into November.
Okay. Eric, good to see you this morning. Thanks very much indeed.
Now, at 18 minutes past 6, let's take a look at some other stories coming into the newsroom this morning.
And Israel's Eden Golan has qualified for the final of the Eurovision Song Contest on Saturday, despite being booed throughout the rehearsals and live event. Protesters want Israel banned in the same manner Russia was for its involvement in a controversial conflict. Police managed to see off thousands of pro-Palestinian demonstrators who were surrounding the stadium, including Greta Thunberg.
Police in Florida have released body camera footage from a policeman who fatally shot a black American airman in his own home. 23-year-old senior airman Roger Fortson answered the door holding a weapon by his side as the police officer attended a reported disturbance. The deputy who shot him has since been placed on administrative leave.
And 9-year-old Tony Hudgell has been re-invited to Buckingham Palace after missing the garden party on Wednesday because of traffic. The double amputee has raised more than $2 million for charity, having spent much of his life getting specialist and life-saving treatment. Yes, they all got stuck in traffic, didn't they?
I know.
And they tweeted about it.
Yeah.
And then the palace responded.
And said, you can come next year, don't worry, Tony. But I was reading about him today and he just said, all I wanted to do was see the king and see if he was OK. Oh. How sweet is that? He said, I heard that he's been having treatment. I just wanted to check the king was OK.
Oh,
so he just sounds like the loveliest little boy in the world.
He does. I reckon he'll be getting a special invite, actually. I think he'll be going on his own. I think, yeah.
Oh, he's so cute.
I think there'll be a special little invite and he'll be tripping up on his own, having a little sit down with the king.
Yeah, apparently he bounded out of school I think it was yesterday, when he found out he was going to the garden party. And he'd been re-invited. Absolutely delighted with himself. So it's a lovely story. I do like that story this morning.
Very sweet.
Very nice.
But this is what the king needs to be doing, and what he does well, actually. All this, it's all about real people.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Oh, bless him. Very, very sweet.
Yeah, that's a nice one. I can see a documentary being made.
Oh, here we go.
Lovely.
Probably a Netflix drama.
Yeah,
probably. Where we're going.
Lovely.
Don't tell Harry. Now, a Cornish MP is calling on the government to put more money into coastal communities across the UK. Steve Double says funding, currently earmarked for rural communities, doesn't trickle to coastal areas.
Yes, he's urging the government to reorganise the need for better provision in our seaside towns. Our South West of England reporter Jeff Moody reports.
Sam Richardson is a singer-songwriter from St Agnes in Cornwall. Much of his music reflects a sense of frustration with life in a coastal town.
We've got a lot of empty shops in a lot of our town centres, which is sort of causing a lot of death on the high street. I know that's a problem everywhere, but it is particularly bad down in Cornwall. I think the infrastructure as well, for me, is like a really big problem down here. Our roads are just rammed all the time.
Similar problems across the border in Devon. Ilfracombe is the most deprived area in North Devon. Twice the town has applied for levelling up funding. Twice it's been turned down, something North Devon MP Selene Saxby says is frustrating.
It's very complicated. It's not as straightforward as just throwing money at the problem. They're very deep issues. And I think, you know, the Nick Whitty report highlighted some of the health inequalities that you see around the coast, on top of some of the property challenges. I think, you know, stood here today in this wind, you can see just maintaining properties in areas like this is significantly harder.
For several years, the government has acknowledged that rural areas need extra help, but so far that help doesn't stretch to our coasts. The MP for St Austell and Newquay is pushing the government to change all this.
Truly local people are finding it really challenging because we often have sort of low-wage seasonal work, but very high house prices pushed up because of second homes and holiday lets, etc. And also, I think the disparity review that Theresa May carried out when she was Prime Minister highlighted that working-class white boys in coastal communities are some of the most disadvantaged people in the country.
Struggling to get on the housing ladder, struggling to find work, struggling to be heard.
It's interesting that a member of the party that's in government recognises that, which is great, because it is a really important thing. But that government, for the last 10 years, has also cut £500 million in youth services around the country. So not only have you got disaffected young men searching for community, there isn't anywhere for them to go. They're finding these communities in dark areas of the internet. That's the only place that they're finding this. And when you're disaffected and you're disillusioned, it's so much more easy to become radicalized. Imagine if we could raise all of our young men to be, look, life over the last however many thousands of years has swayed towards the benefit of, you know, white guys. And we need to make sure that we make this a more equal and progressive society. So it's your responsibility as a young male to bring people from the LGBTQ plus community into the fold and make sure that they feel safe and heard and understood. And it's your responsibility to do the same thing with women, make sure that they feel safe and understood and heard in these discussions, and not say, there's no room for you in this conversation. We're going to speak to all of the people that it involves, which is obviously great that they have a seat, but I feel like a lot of young white working class lads don't feel like they have a seat at the table anymore.
No one thinks the problem of coastal deprivation can be solved overnight. The issue of disaffected young white males even harder. Jeff Moody, GB News.
Now, it was lovely yesterday, the weather, wasn't it?
Very nice.
Well, you actually sat in your garden, so you actually didn't waste it.
No.
But I didn't get out in it, but I will today. Hopefully it's still lovely weather today. Alex has got all the details for us.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning. Here's your latest GB News weather brought to you by the Met Office. The fine and often sunny weather many of us have had recently will continue for a little while yet. Yes, there are some mist and fog patches around first thing this morning, but these will quickly burn back because there'll be plenty of sunshine around. Lots of bright blue skies on offer as we head into the afternoon. A bit more cloud towards Shetland, a little bit of rain here, and elsewhere 1 or 2 showers possible. Most places staying dry and in the sunshine, feeling even warmer than yesterday. Highs of around 24 or 25 Celsius. Little change as we go through this evening and overnight. It is going to stay settled. A lot of the cloud will actually clear away, so clear skies for many of us, though some low cloud pushing in from the North Sea across some eastern parts, and elsewhere a few pockets of mist and fog are possible. Temperatures generally dropping to high single figures or low double digits. We start Saturday on a fine note for many places, though quite cloudy towards eastern parts. Again, any mist and fog will quickly burn back, and then once more another largely fine day for many of us. Just watch out for the potential for some showers to develop over high ground towards northern England, and some of these could be heavy. Temperatures even higher than today for some of us, highs of around 25, possibly 26 Celsius. On Sunday, there's the risk of some showery rain, which could turn heavy, possibly thundery, developing across western parts. Further east, however, it's likely to stay largely dry. Again, plenty of sunshine here, and temperatures could get even higher with highs of 26 or 27.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Now it's time for our giveaway now, and we want to say a big congratulations to Jake from London, who won our last Great British Giveaway. Here's the moment we called him to tell him that he was a winner.
Jake, I've got some really good news for you. You're the winner of the Great British Giveaway.
No, I'm not. What?
You are. You've won the cruise, the travel gifts, and you've also won £10,000.
Do you know what? I've never won anything like this in my life.
Well, congratulations.
Yes, I wasn't expecting that.
How does it feel?
I'm in shock. Like I said, I've never won anything like this, and I almost didn't. It didn't pick up.
You see, it's always worth answering your phone.
Yeah.
Obviously, that cruise is for 2 people, so I don't know who you're going to take.
Well, I think my partner would be quite annoyed if I didn't take her.
I think she would be.
Oh,
Looks great, doesn't it? We're very jealous.
I'm very jealous. So enjoy the cruise, Jake, whoever you take with you. It was a prize worth £20,000, and you could be our next winner with 20 grand in tax-free cash.
Yes, it's our biggest cash prize so far, and here's how you can make it yours.
It's the biggest cash prize we've given away to date. An incredible £20,000 that you could use however you like. And because it's totally tax-free, every single penny will be in your bank account to do whatever you like with. £20,000 in tax-free cash really could be yours this summer. But you've got to be in it to win it. For another chance to win £20,000 in tax-free cash, text WIN to 63232. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB05 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 31st of May. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Now, still to come for you, 3 plane crashes in just 2 days. What's going on? We're going to try to find out in a couple of minutes.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall? Let's find out together. For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel. Join me, Camilla Tominey, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial.
With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers.
I agree.
And that's precisely what I'll get.
Is he indecisive?
Incompetent? That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg and this is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Friday nights on GB News with Dubes & Co from 6, followed by Lee Anderson's Real World at 7. At 8, it's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. And at 9, join Patrick Christie's Tonight, followed by Headliners at 11, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threat and so on.
Our job is to do what's in the best interest of our country.
You made my argument for me.
My guest and I tackle the issues that really matter, with a sharp take on every story.
I'm hearing it up and down the country.
That was a beginning, not an end.
Patrick Christie's Tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Breakfast. It's 6:31. Now, Boeing has suffered a third plane crash in just 2 days.
Yeah, according to reports, 190 people were evacuated from an aircraft in Turkey after one of the tyres burst. Comes after a cargo plane landed on its nose in Istanbul as another jet skidded off the runway and caught fire in Senegal.
Well, there is no suggestion that Boeing are to blame for the crashes, and they're yet to comment on the incidents.
Let's talk to travel and aviation analyst Sally Gethin. Good to see you, Sally. What's going on?
Yes, well, unfortunately, it does affect Boeing, the company, in this regard, because they're under investigation in the United States by the regulator there. And unfortunately, the headlines for Boeing just don't go away in terms of incidents. And like you said, there have been a few more incidents. But having said that, it does not mean that Boeing's definitely to blame, because, you know, some of these incidents could be due to other issues, possibly maintenance even. But there needs to be more work done to actually work out what happened in each of those recent incidents.
What happens next, Sally? I imagine there's going to be an investigation.
Well, there will be an investigation for each of those incidents in the last few days. And that will be conducted by the regulator in that particular country, and Boeing will be consulted. But there is also an investigation going on anyway into Boeing. Most of the problems Boeing has had has been with an aircraft called the Boeing 737 MAX, and that's not involved in any of those incidents in the last few days. But wider problems at Boeing have been revealed in terms of actually putting the aircraft together on the assembly floor, and one of the suppliers into Boeing as well. And in recent days, this week, there have been issues with Boeing 787 Dreamliner, which is a much larger airplane. And Boeing itself has said that there are some problems there. So the regulator's looking into that as well.
OK, heck. Sally, thanks very much indeed. The airlines, so Boeing hasn't commented, the airlines haven't commented either in any of this, so I don't know, it's a bit of a concern.
Yeah, and it must be terrifying if you're on that aircraft in Turkey. One of the tyres burst.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can hear the panic in that clip there, so hopefully there's an investigation now and that's all sorted. Should we have a look at the sport?
I think we better had Aidan McGee's here. Morning to you.
Morning to you both.
Morning.
Good to see you.
Bad news last night for Villa.
Well, it was. Look, to be honest, Stephen, it was a Herculean task in Greece. I've been waiting to use that all morning.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. It's the second time I've used it, actually. But no, look, they were 4-2 down from the first leg. Ellie, they went to Greece last night. Now, Olympiacos, fourth in the table in their domestic league. It was a chance for Villa to get to European final for the first time since 1982. First time they could have won a trophy, actually, since 1996. But despite playing better, they lost by 2-0. They hit on the counter a couple of times. But, you know, it's important to retain some kind of perspective over this. They're fourth in the league. They could qualify for the Champions League for the first time since they won the competition back in 1982. So I don't think anyone's getting unduly perturbed by that result last night. He didn't rest as many players as I expected. He brought some off at the end because they've got a big game against Liverpool at the weekend. But I don't think anyone at Aston Villa is panicking. The only thing it means in terms of the overall contribution of British clubs in Europe is that for the first time in many a long year, we've got to this stage of the season with all British clubs, English and Scottish clubs, being completely out of all European competition, which... OK, it doesn't look good on this year, but goodness me, we've had some great times in the last decade or so, even going back beyond. I can't remember the last time a British club wasn't in the latter stages of any European competition, because West Ham, of course, won the Europa Conference League last year. And that all kind of crystallised what Villa have done last night. They thought they would have matched what West Ham did at least last year, but it wasn't to be. But as I said, look, they've got 69 points. They've got a big game against Liverpool over the weekend. They're 7 points ahead of Spurs. Still a bit to play for there, but I fancy them to get into the Champions League, and that will be one hell of an achievement.
Yep, it certainly will be. We've got a lot to discuss with Man U. Where do you want to start?
Well, there was an email sent last weekend, wasn't there, by Sir Jim Ratcliffe, the new owner. He was talking about the state of the facilities at the training ground. He was doing an audit. And then there was a report in yesterday's papers saying that that particular email had left the training ground feeling rather toxic. Now, I understand how that happens. Sometimes you get some direction from above, don't you? And so those foot soldiers on the ground are looking at each other thinking, well, that's your fault we're getting the blame for this, it's your fault we're getting the blame for that. And the IT department is apparently manned by very young people, so it was probably a little bit unfair to blame them. Maybe he should have looked a bit closer, but nonetheless, he was disappointed by what he saw. And now he's ordered, apparently, according to the Daily Mirror today, David McDonald, he's ordered an investigation into the number of injuries the club are suffering at the moment. Now, the numbers are quite staggering. They've got 11 first-team players out now. 8 of those I would consider to be real frontline players: McTominay, Maguire, Rashford, Varane, Martinez, Fernandes. They've got 3-4 games left now, including the FA Cup final. Some players are apparently saying, we don't think we're going to win another game. But if you look at their remaining games, Arsenal at home, Newcastle at home, Brighton away, Manchester City at Wembley, I mean, they could face humiliation. That Manchester City are in sizzling form. They could have won the Premier League by then. So they're up against it. But if you look at the actual 31 different defensive combinations in 48 games that Erik ten Hag has had to put out this season, he's just not been able to get the consistency that you would need to mount any kind of challenge for the title. They're 8th in the league, and it looks to be their lowest finish since 2013. And so 60 different injuries since the start of the season. I mean, you just how can you possibly manage that? Yeah, I know we can put it to the manager and say, well, you know, is it your training? Is there a problem with the players? Are they thinking the pressure of playing for Manchester United is just getting a bit too much? Maybe I've got a bit of a hamstring this week.
Maybe we need to just forget about the squad of today and reflect on 98, 99 and the golden times.
This is the problem, though. This is the problem because these big clubs, when they start doing badly, they look to their history more and more. Liverpool did it. Liverpool went through years of doing it after they won the league in 1990, and it's another one last night. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not the fault of the 99 team. They were successful, and we saw them in Manchester last night having a great celebration. There's David Beckham, for the benefit of our radio listeners, on the red carpet there up in Manchester. Gary Neville was involved as well, Paul Scholes, Nicky Butt, etc. And when it's contrasted against the current Manchester United team, it makes the current United team look even worse. Now, it's for them to chase the top sides. They've done nothing wrong, those guys, last night. That was always planned, but 25 years it is this month. I think May the 26th was the night they won in the Nou Camp in dramatic circumstances and won the treble. But it does bring home to Man United fans, many of whom will remember that night very, very well, because it's a living memory, that how bad the current situation is, and it also brings into focus just what Sir Jim Ratcliffe has to do to get this club going again, because it's going to be a massive, massive job.
It's funny, Peter Schmeichel.
I know,
I haven't seen him for ages.
He retired after that game. He didn't retire. He left Manchester United after that game, and he went overseas and then came back with Aston Villa and Man City later on. But a magnificent goalkeeper.
Brilliant, Aidan. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
A little bit later on.
Now, do stay with us. We're going to be going through the papers with Mike Buckley and Suzanne Evans. That's next.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In Tyne Wear, Hendon Close in Sunderland is closed in both directions between the High Street East and Borough Road. There's a fire on Villiers Street. In Derbyshire, the A38's closed northbound off the A61 from Little Eaton Island to the Derby Road junction at Coxbench. That's because of a fallen tree. There's a reduced rail service on some routes in England again today because of an overtime ban by rail workers. Buses replaced trains too between Leamington Spa and Nuneaton, between Bedford and Bletchley, and also between Watford Junction and St Albans Abbey. In London, Tramlink services aren't running at the moment because of a shortage of trams. And in Cornwall, there's a report of an accident on the A30 eastbound near to Blackhill Quarry at Polyphant. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
At 6:41, let's have a look at some of the front pages for you. The Mirror leads with the surge in whooping cough, as 5 babies have died this year. The UK facing its biggest outbreak in 40 years.
The Guardian leads with more than 100,000 people leaving Rafah as Israel steps up its bombardment of the region.
The Express asks who will win the tug-of-war over interest rates. Jeremy Hunt telling the Bank of England, don't cut them too quickly.
The Telegraph leads with the same picture of Prince William joining a volleyball game in Newquay.
The Times has school truancy up by a fifth on Fridays.
Well, joining us now to go through the papers is former Labour advisor Mike Buckley and political commentator Suzanne Evans. Good to see you both this morning. Good morning to you. And Mike, let's start with the Mail front page, shall we? And whooping cough? Whooping cough?
Whooping cough.
Whooping cough. So, I mean, it sounds like a disease from, the middle of the last century or something, doesn't it? Because we thought we'd got rid of it. We had got rid of it, but very sadly, people have been vaccinating their children less and less over time. I think because of this kind of wider, very unfortunate concern about vaccinating children, which has led to the rise in a number of other diseases as well, like measles and so on. So this is endangering a lot of kids, and very sadly, in the last week, 5 babies have died of whooping cough, which isn't something that should be happening in a developed nation like this. So obviously the message to parents is get your children, get your infants vaccinated. But the government clearly needs to be doing more on this. There should have been they should have noticed that vaccination rates were reducing, done a big education campaign on it, and they just haven't. They've just been asleep at the wheel.
Yeah, it's very, very sad, this story. 61% of pregnant women were vaccinated against whooping cough. Now, that's far too low because it's a very high risk if you to your baby if you have this when you're pregnant. And as Mike was saying, I think there's been this general decline in vaccination rates. Lockdowns, COVID lockdowns are obviously partly responsible for that. Vaccination fell because the NHS simply wasn't available to do them. Then we had the whole scandal around the MMR vaccine and the COVID vaccines, which weren't as effective as everyone said. So there's been a general demise in vaccination. As Mike says, this is a preventable disease. People need to get vaccinated.
But we forget it goes out of the public consciousness. I mean, I remember people going on about whooping cough when I was little. But it probably never registered with you.
No. You forget how serious these things are. But the other interesting thing is it's particularly high in parts of London and Birmingham, and that makes me wonder if you've also got mothers coming from overseas who haven't had the same kind of vaccination programmes that we've had too, that could be skewing the figures.
Possibly. I was talking to somebody a few weeks ago who works on a vaccination programme, and she was saying exactly that in parts of the country, like Birmingham, you have people coming from other countries, perhaps not having English as their first language, and they literally don't know or understand what they need to have their children vaccinated against, and they don't have the means of finding out either because they don't speak English.
1957
so it is a
had
challenge.
whooping cough vaccine since in this country, but of course not everywhere else.
Yeah.
No.
Right, Suzanne, let's have a look at The Guardian, should we? Looking at unpaid carers.
Yeah, I have to say, I was incensed reading this story. Basically, what's happening is that if you're an unpaid carer, so you're probably looking after a family member, you get paid £81 a week in carer's allowance. But if you earn more than £151 a week, you lose that. Now, that's appalling to start with. But what's happening is people are going over that threshold and the government's not alerting them. The Department for Work and Pensions is supposed to have a scheme where if people earn more than that, they're alerted so that allowance can be removed. That's not happening. So the £81 is still being paid, and then people are getting into debt, and the DWP expects them to pay it back. And so they're facing bills of up to £5,000. I mean, this is absolutely unacceptable. There's a quote in The Guardian from the Director of Policy and Public Affairs at the Carers Trust, Dominic Carter, and he says honest mistakes by unpaid carers are spiralling out of control because the DWP hasn't provided enough staff to deal with the issue.
I mean, sometimes they're just earning a couple of pounds over the limit.
A penny more, penny more, and that's it. And then you find yourself in debt. It's horrendous, and this is happening to about 1 in 5 people. It really is a scandal. I'm so angry reading this.
Mike, what do you make of it?
I mean, from reading the piece this morning, it sounds like the government have deliberately employed about half as many staff as they need over a 5-year period. And they've been watching these cases come in, they've not been dealing with, they've been letting the debt rack up, not telling the carers involved, and then eventually, years later, stepping in saying, oh, by the way, you owe us thousands of pounds. This is money these people are not going to have. Yeah. They're obviously dealing with probably quite a stressful situation anyway, dealing with a sick family member. To then be saddled with all this debt from the government, which they can't do anything about, is absolutely horrendous. I mean, it's gross mistreatment of people, and the government knew they were doing this by spending too little money on employing people in the DWP. In my view, all of this debt should be written off, and they should just press reboot, start again, employ enough staff, and then if people get into trouble in the future, approach them in the first few weeks, the first few months, so that this can be easily rectified. But I do think the system should be changed anyway, and if they go to £151 and a penny, they shouldn't lose the whole £81 allowance.
Well, no, I mean,
it should be progressive, you know?
Well, this is what I don't understand. With a system like this, sometimes you've got to come down hard if people are playing the system. Yeah. This isn't one of those scenarios, is it?
No, if you're an unpaid carer, you're saving the state a massive amount of money. You should be lauded, applauded, paid more for it, frankly, not penalised in this way. It's horrendous.
But if you go, it's not much money.
But if there's a £151 limit and you go over that by £20, you take £20 off the carer's allowance. That I can understand, but not remove the whole thing.
Entirely.
You could do that. It's not even that much money. I mean, you could
just
think, maybe it's cheaper for the government overall to not employ the staff to check and just to say to all unpaid carers, you get £81 however much you earn. That would probably save the state a hell of a lot of money. It would save everybody all the stress.
Yeah. Well, you will have a view on that. Do let us know what it is. gbnews.com/your say. Mike, let's look at Rafah, shall we? It's on the Guardian front page.
I mean, this is yet another part of this ongoing story, which has been on for 7 or 8 months now, which is almost too horrific to conceive of, you know. But anyway, so the latest news is obviously there were lots of talks in the last few weeks between Israel and Hamas meeting together in Cairo to discuss a ceasefire deal. About a week ago, Hamas said yes to a ceasefire deal. So Israel had clearly put an offer on the table. Hamas said yes. Then Israel have turned around and said, well, no, we don't actually want a ceasefire after all. We just want the war to continue. So they have now gone against...
No, to be fair, that's putting it out of context.
I don't think it is. I mean,
yes, it is. It is, because part of the deal that Hamas put forward... I'm not saying I agree with this either way, but before anyone starts emailing in, but what Hamas put on the table was that this ceasefire would end the conflict. So it wasn't
I think Hamas
it would end the conflict, and Israel said, no, that's not what we're prepared to do.
I think what Hamas have since said is that they've agreed to it not ending the conflict, but going for 40 days as an initial start, but obviously as a move towards ending the conflict. But anyway, what's happened since is against all international recommendations, including from the US, Israel have decided to invade Rafah anyway, which is the city in the south of Gaza where Israel, for 7 months now, have been telling Gazans to flee because it's meant to be a safe space.
Look, Hamas has still not released those hostages that it took on October the 7th.
But they've said that they will.
We still don't know. Well, why aren't they doing it? You know, if they release those
Israel
hostages, they've held them now, like for what, since October last year. We don't know how many are still alive. We think there's around 130 still being held. Israel thinks a quarter of those are dead. I can't help thinking now, after October, you've got young women who've been taken hostage. Some of them will be pregnant now because we know they've been raped by Hamas terrorists. The situation that's happening is horrific, and frankly, I cannot understand how anybody can call for a ceasefire without first insisting that those hostages are released. What Hamas is doing is appalling, and Israel has every right to defend itself. And frankly, Joe Biden, sitting in the comfort of his luxurious Oval Office in the White House and saying, right, well, we're not going to give Israel any more arms to defend them. It's sickening, frankly. Israel's got to win this, or the whole of the Western civilization is at risk and at threat from Muslim terrorism. It's got to stop.
It's not just Biden, is it, though?
It's not Biden, no, but him in
it's
particular
frankly now
this week.
the entire Western world saying this has gone too far.
Well, it has gone too far, but as I say, if Hamas had said, right, we want a sensible two-state solution, we'll lay down our arms, we'll release the hostage, we'll have sensible talks, as opposed to just frankly carrying on its war cries, things would be very different right now.
Israel won't even consider a two-state solution. Every time it's mentioned, they say, no, we're not going to go anywhere near it. And Israel has killed well over 30,000 people in Gaza, which is completely disproportionate. Of course they have the right to defend themselves. They do not have the right to kill over 30,000 people.
Well, I'm afraid that's what happens in war. And let's not forget who started this war. There was a ceasefire on October the 6th. It existed, it was holding. And then October the 7th, the landscape changed, and that was entirely Hamas's fault.
You can't justify what Hamas did on October the 7th, but you also can't justify what Israel have done since. And Joe Biden is exactly right to try and prevent further bloodshed in Gaza.
OK, Suzanne, let's have a look at the Telegraph, shall we? And this is the Trump hush money trial. We've seen Stormy Daniels give her testimony, haven't we, this week?
Yes, that's right. So Donald Trump, of course, is up in court, not because he had an affair with Stormy Daniels, the former porn actress, but because he allegedly paid her hush money to say, keep quiet about this affair. He and his camp are saying this is a Democrat-led witch hunt, and they're doing anything they possibly can to stop him running for president again. So, yeah, I mean, this is going to keep us going, I think, for quite some time. What the Trump side is saying now is that basically they're trying to paint Stormy Daniels as an extortionist. There's this idea that when they had their very, very brief relationship, he then paid her this money, allegedly, made her sign a non-disclosure agreement, which she has broken. It's, in many senses, this is a good old-fashioned kiss and tell story, I think. But
It
with
sort of is, but the issue here, though, it's where it gets complicated, because it's not actually about this, is it? It's about what he claimed that money was for, that 130 grand. And he said it was something sort of campaign funds.
Yeah,
or
it's basically that he falsified his accounts. That is the charge against him. And obviously that
needs
charge
to be investigated, doesn't it?
Absolutely, because that charge, if it sticks, is a very serious allegation to level against a past and wannabe former president of the USA.
So from someone to the right of politics, is this a witch hunt or not? If you say it's a serious charge, that's the allegation, should be investigated, so is it a witch hunt?
It's a difficult one, isn't it? I think the way in which it's been played out, because of his profile, I think there is an element of witch hunt in it. Obviously, people have gone looking for anything to throw at Donald Trump. And, of course, they've made various other allegations against him which haven't stuck and haven't gone anywhere. And it is a bit like they're constantly pulling away the layers of the onion and trying to find something. But yeah, this is a serious charge, you're right. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Mike, what do you reckon?
I'm glad he's being investigated. There's clearly a case to answer. It's perfectly reasonable that it's heard in a court of law, as the many other cases that are going to be heard in the court of law with Donald Trump as the defendant.
It's very odd, though, isn't it? Because of the... I mean, the problem is you can look at this and say, yes, it's quite right that something's investigated. The problem is that the judiciary is politicised in the States in a way that we don't have over here, with these people being elected and having a political allegiance. That does make it problematic, doesn't it? It does make it open for criticism.
I agree with you, and I think one of the unfortunate repercussions of the first Trump term is the fact that he appointed lots of judges across the country, including in the Supreme Court, that are incredibly partisan, and that is having a disproportionate effect on US politics. So that is a problem. If he is suffering from that problem, it's a problem he could have fixed when he was president, and he didn't. And in fact, he used that to his own gain.
Mike, let's stay with you, shall we, and talk about baby reindeer. and this interview last night.
So I will admit I'm not an expert on Baby Reindeer. I don't even have a Netflix subscription, so I have not watched it. In fact, I was being educated about Baby Reindeer this morning.
Have you watched it, Suzanne?
And it sounds like the kind of TV show that I wouldn't want to watch.
Yes.
It just, to me, the whole thing just seems actually quite unpleasant. I mean, there's clearly some unfortunate circumstance that happened between these two people. Does it really need to be turned into a TV show so everybody else can watch it? So I just, to be honest, feel some degree of, you know, almost compassion for the two of them, just thinking, how have you got yourselves into this mess?
So just in case anybody hasn't watched it and you're not sure what we're talking about, Baby Reindeer is a new Netflix series. It's about a male comedian who works in a bar, and a lady comes in one day, he offers her a free cup of tea, he feels sorry for her because she couldn't afford a drink, and she goes on, he says, to stalk her. And it's a series about a man being stalked, essentially, by a female stalker.
Basically true.
Well, the real life...
Sort of true.
Stalker was interviewed last night. Did you watch it?
I didn't. So I'm afraid I came to the studio this morning never having heard of Baby Reindeer. I'm ashamed to say. Netflix obviously wasn't pushing it at me enough. It was pushing something else that perhaps I prefer to watch, because, as Mike says, it does sound like you've got two really quite stressed, potentially damaged people here taking part. The comedian who's making the accusations is actually playing himself in this, so he's presumably reliving the whole thing as he goes through it.
So, but in the process, I've not
potentially, I'm going to have to watch it obviously now and find out. I don't particularly fancy it very much. I'll be honest. It does sound like it's going to be quite uncomfortable.
Yeah, it is uncomfortable.
It doesn't work for me.
It is uncomfortable.
There's three of us haven't watched it here, but there you go. But the point is, it's meant to be semi-fictional. But if people have been able to identify this woman and are making conclusions about her, does she have a case to sue?
She's had a lot of abuse, I gather.
And death threats as well. And there's questions now about whether that TV interview last night was responsible or not, because it does look as though she has some problems. Anyway, thank you, you two. Let's take a look at the weather with Alex.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning. Here's your latest GB News weather brought to you by the Met Office. The fine and often sunny weather many of us have had recently will continue for a little while yet. Yes, there are some mist and fog patches around first thing this morning, but these will quickly burn back because there'll be plenty of sunshine around. Lots of bright blue skies on offer as we head into the afternoon. There are a bit more cloud towards Shetland, a little bit of rain here, and elsewhere 1 or 2 showers possible. Most places staying dry and in the sunshine, feeling even warmer than yesterday. Highs of around 24 or 25 Celsius. Little change as we go through this evening and overnight. It is going to stay settled. A lot of the cloud will actually clear away, so clear skies for many of us, though some low cloud pushing in from the North Sea across some eastern parts, and elsewhere a few pockets of mist and fog are possible. Temperatures generally dropping to high single figures or low double digits. We start Saturday on a fine note for many places, though quite cloudy towards eastern parts. Again, any mist and fog will quickly burn back, and then once more another largely fine day for many of us. Just watch out for the potential for some showers to develop over high ground towards northern England, and some of these could be heavy. Temperatures even higher than today for some of us, highs of around 25, possibly 26 Celsius. On Sunday, there's the risk of some showery rain, which could turn heavy, possibly thundery, developing across western parts. Further east, however, it's likely to stay largely dry. Again, plenty of sunshine here, and temperatures could get even higher with highs of 26 or 27.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding in Tyne and Wear. Hendon Close in Sunderland is closed each way between High Street East and Borough Road because of a fire on Villiers Street earlier. Mersey Ferry commuter sailings aren't running this morning because of low tide, so a bus is running instead between Seacombe and Hamilton Square. In Derbyshire, the A38's closed northbound off the A61 at Little Eaton Island because of a fallen tree. There's a reduced rail service on a number of routes in England again today because of an overtime banned by rail workers, with buses replacing trains between Leamington Spa and Nuneaton, between Bedford and Bletchley, and between Watford Junction and St Albans Abbey. Tramlink services in London aren't running till 7 this morning because of a shortage of trams. There are delays of up to 20 minutes and some cancelled trains between Cardiff Central and Bridgend after a freight train broke down. And in Cornwall, there's a report of an accident on the A30 eastbound near to Black Hill Quarry at Polyphant. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
It's the biggest cash prize we've given away to date. An incredible £20,000 that you could use however you like. And because it's totally tax-free, every single penny will be in your bank account to do whatever you like with. £20,000 in tax-free cash really could be yours this summer. But you've got to be in it to win it. For another chance to win £20,000 in tax-free cash, text PRIZE to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB05 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 31st of May. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good morning. 7 o'clock on Friday, the 10th of May. Today, the Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer, is set to unveil plans to use terror laws in order to combat small boat crossings.
Brexit architect Dominic Cummings plans to create a new party that he hopes will replace the Tories.
A judge denies Donald Trump's request for a mistrial in his hush money case as Stormy Daniels concludes her testimony.
3 Boeing planes crash in just 2 days, calling into question the aircraft manufacturer's safety record.
And don't forget to microchip your cats. I'm not saying that all morning, I'm telling you now. There's a new change in the law could see you fined if you don't.
Good morning, and then there were none. Aston Villa's Europa Conference League defeat means there are now no British clubs left in Europe. And at Manchester United, Sir Jim Ratcliffe continues his forensic review into his newly acquired club as the treble-winning stars of '99 are remembered at a glitzy red carpet event in Manchester. More later.
Morning. The fine weather's going to stick around for a little while yet, but it's not set to last through the whole weekend. I'll have more on that coming up.
Morning to you, I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Ellie Costello, and this is Breakfast on GB News.
She was laughing at the top, if you just caught us, because she was about, I'm just buying something for restless leg. And you were like, what's restless leg?
What's restless leg?
Awful. If you have restless leg, you'll have some sympathy. It's just when your legs sort of twitch a bit at night.
Oh, I feel like I've got that.
And it's just like your little nerves just firing away, and it just stops you from getting to sleep.
I think I've got that.
Oh, there you
Restless
go.
leg.
Restless leg syndrome.
Oh.
It's a nightmare.
Oh, how long have you suffered with that for?
Oh, a few years now.
Oh,
Comes and goes. Comes and goes. So I'm getting some magnesium. Apparently, there's this proper medication you can get, but magnesium is apparently what...
Apparently magnesium helps you sleep better as well.
Oh, does it?
Do you want to give me some?
Of that?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you contribute to the amount it costs to buy vitamins.
It looks very expensive, actually.
Well, no, it's not so bad. But it's, yeah, if you suffer from restless leg, maybe it's why you're up at 7 o'clock on a Friday morning, if you're not working. Oh, it drives you mad, stuff like this. That's what happens when you get to a certain age.
Just had an email in from David Dashwood. It's not emails anymore, is it? What do you call it? Comment on our forum, gbnews.com/you'll say, you can see it there. David Dashwood talking about Dominic Cummings and his plans for a new party to replace the Tories. He says, where will the party headquarters be? Barnard Castle.
Oh.
Very good.
Yes, actually, I drove past Barnard Castle a couple of months ago. Saw a sign for it.
You did exactly the same route that Dominic Cummings did.
Well, you do sort of think, that's what you think, isn't it? It's like, oh, hell. Barnard Castle.
Was he testing his eyesight or something like that?
Yes, he was testing his eyesight because he couldn't see very well. So he thought he'd test it by driving his family to Barnard Castle. I mean, you never... But anyway, he wants to set up a new party. I don't quite understand these people. He's a very clever man, a very clever strategist, but he also seems to be very, very angry a lot of the time, doesn't he?
Yes.
Like a very angry man. I don't know if that's what we...
And every time you think he's disappeared from public life, he just pops up again.
Yeah. So there you go. I don't know. New parties, though, never work very well.
Well, that's what he's...
Well, you say that. Reform's obviously got a lot of traction at the moment. That's got traction, but all the ones that were set up after Brexit were people who wanted second referendums and things, all they disappeared into nothing.
But will Reform get seats at the next general election, or will they just make a lot of noise and disruption? Cummings has admitted that the first-past-the-post electoral system would make it difficult for his party to break through.
Yes.
He has said that.
Well, it would. But, you know, making his voice heard again.
And Simon Egan says, more kittens, please. We will bring you kittens later on in the show.
This is about microchipping your cat.
Is Timmy microchipped?
Yep.
Ah.
So it's been a legal obligation for dogs for ages, for a long time. Got to have your dog microchipped. They're now bringing cats up to that as well. And if you don't do it, you'll get fined. Quite right too. I found a cat last year.
Yeah.
I think last year, and there was a cat meowing in the garden, like really crying. And picked it up and took it in and fed it. It was starving. The poor thing was starving. And took it to the vets. And it was microchipped, and they called the owner, and it had been missing for a week.
Oh, and it was starving.
And it had walked about 7 miles.
So it just got lost.
So they went and picked it up, and that's all. If you hadn't been microchipped, what would you have done? What would you have done? So it works. It's a really good thing to do.
Oh, that's really good.
And it's not very expensive. It's worth it.
Do you remember when I rescued a kitten last year?
No.
Smittens, yes, you do.
The one that was living in your flat?
Pretty much living in the flat at one point. She used to sit on our doorstep and just come in every day. And she was starving hungry. And then I was going to take her to the vet, do you remember? And then I didn't know how to get her there safely because I didn't know how to carry her there. And then I haven't seen her since, so...
Oh.
I miss her every day. Think about her every day.
Oh, there you go. You need to get one.
No, I do need to get one. And just had a really nice view from Sue Ryder, who says she's up early because she has restless dogs, not a restless leg. I don't take meds, I just take them out for a walk.
Well, fair enough. Yeah,
Well, thanks for popping us on.
Right, now Labour is going to launch a plan today to tackle the small boat crisis.
Yes, in a major speech, Sir Keir Starmer will unveil proposals for stronger new counter-terror powers that will effectively treat people smugglers like terrorists.
Well, his plans will be supported by about 1,000 additional officers recruited by, of all people, MI5.
Well, to do this, Labour will spend £75 million, equating to a year that would have been spent on sending migrants to Rwanda.
Let's talk to our senior political commentator, Nigel Nelson. Morning to you, Nigel. Is this an ambitious plan or sort of anything but Rwanda for Keir Starmer?
I think it's probably an ambitious plan. I mean, the idea is to create a new border security command. And as you said, that will be staffed by, among others, it'll be MI5 spies moving in. You'd also have the National Crime Agency involved, Border Force involved, the Crown Prosecution Service. So bringing a lot of agencies together and then extending counter-terror laws. So if you come across people smugglers or you suspect someone of people smuggling, you can stop and search them at the border just on suspicion. You can search their homes. You can seize their mobile phones. Have a look at their bank accounts. So it could be a way of dealing with the gangs who are bringing people across the channel.
Do you make of criticism, Nigel, that this is just Labour wanting closer ties with the EU again?
Well, I mean, we ought to have close ties with the EU. I mean, they're our nearest neighbours. That doesn't mean reversing Brexit, doesn't mean going back into the EU, but we have to cooperate with them, and especially on immigration. It's important that we share the kind of intelligence that the Europeans have got, which is something that we did lose through Brexit. So part of this idea is to embed officers with Europol, where you get that kind of intelligence sharing working.
It's going to beg the question, though, Nigel, why, if the Rwanda scheme is seen to work, there are some claims it's working already. There are some claims being made, you've probably seen in some media this morning, that people are sort of heading back over the channel on small boats because they're scared of the Rwanda scheme. If it works, why get rid of it?
Well, the question is if it works, and also the cost of it. So at the moment, the Rwanda scheme will only take initially 300 migrants. Now, the kind of cost you're talking about there is nearly 2 million per migrant, which means we could keep one of them in a hotel for 30 years for that kind of money. This is a much more cost-effective way of doing it. Now, Keir Starmer clearly believes that Rwanda isn't going to work, and certainly the evidence at the moment is not very strong. That the whole point of Rwanda is to deter people from crossing the channel. What we've seen so far this year is 8,500 people making that crossing, and that's 32% up on the same time last year.
It's no accident, is it, Nigel, that this speech by Keir Starmer is being made in Dover today, the seat of Natalie Elphicke, who has just defected from the Conservatives to Labour. They're capitalising on her defection here, aren't they?
Oh, you bet. This is election year, and that's exactly what they want to do. So, I mean, negotiations with Natalie Elphicke have been ongoing for some time. What would have happened is Labour would have prepared their grid. So after her defection, Keir Starmer would make his major announcement on immigration. And the right place to do that is in her seat of Dover, which is on the front line of the small boat crossings.
Yeah, but how uncomfortable is that? I mean, look, on the surface, for the front pages and all the rest of it, that's fine. But for his own backbench MPs, and potentially, actually, a lot of prospective parliamentary candidates as well, they're going to be so uncomfortable with having her on board.
No, they are uncomfortable. There are a lot of people who think that it's not a natural fit for her. And certainly, if I was coming up with a list of Tory MPs who might defect, she certainly wouldn't have been on it. On the plus side, she is criticising the immigration policy, and she's the one who's been having to deal with it down in Dover. Also, she is an expert on housing finance, and one of the jobs that she will do is to advise Keir Starmer about housing policy. And on that, she's actually close to Labour. But certainly, she was perceived to be on the right wing of the party, of the Tory party, that she was a member of the European Research Group, of New Conservatives, both right-wing organisations within the party. So, yes, I mean, Labour MPs are not entirely happy about this, but I think this is politics. Election year, you're absolutely right, Stephen. The headlines look good that a Tory has defected to Labour.
Maybe she should have hung on a little while, Nigel, and gone to Dominic Cummings' new party.
Yes, well, Dominic Cummings has re-emerged. He's talking about what he calls a new start-up party. I mean, judging by the interview today, it's littered with so much bad language, you ought to call it the four-letter word party. But the idea is that he says the Tories will be wiped out in this election. He won't be standing any candidates himself at this election. What he's talking about is trying to form a new party to fill the gap the Tories will leave. And so he's looking towards the next election. Now, I mean, good luck to him. Let's see how it works. But as you've just said, small parties don't really last very long. We've had Change UK that back in 2019 that had 11 MPs, and it lasted only a few months before being disbanded. Now their idea was to reverse Brexit. It didn't work. None of their MPs were re-elected at the 2019 election. So that's the danger with the first past the post system. They don't tend to get very far.
Yeah, and even Dominic Cummings has admitted that. Nigel Nelson, good to see you this morning. Thank you very much indeed.
Yes, it was quite satisfying when none of them got re-elected to Parliament of that lot. It was, I mean, talk about anti-democratic, I thought, without whatever you think of Brexit, whether you voted for it or not, that's what I can't get my head around. If there is a democratic process, you've got to accept the result, haven't you? 50% of the population, give or take, are always going to be not happy with the result. But
got to respect the process.
That's democracy, isn't it?
That's what it is, yeah. Dee has got a tip for you for your restless leg syndrome. Stephen, little tip. Put a brand new bar of soap in the bed near your legs and feet. Don't ask me how it works. I don't know, but somehow it just does.
Does that not get soap all over the sheets?
No, because it would be a brand new bar.
Yes, but it still rubs off on the sheets, doesn't it?
No, because it's not wet. Just pop it in the bed with you.
I don't know. Well, I've ordered these now, magnesium tablets.
Well, keep it. You're a very helpful.
Do work.
You're a very helpful lot.
I love the fact that someone messaged in to say it's a result of the jabs, of the COVID jabs. I've had it a long, long time before the COVID jabs.
And Ian says, classic Northerner Stephen, you're telling me about your drugs that you've got for your restless leg syndrome. She asks if I can have some as well. His instant response was, as long as you contribute to the cost. Very good. Oh, and Estelle says, restless legs, use castor oil, pure cold pressed, rub it under your feet before bed. Look how useful and helpful all of our viewers are.
Yes, because your feet sort of want to curl in and things.
Yep, so castor oil, bar of soap, and that's about it so far, but keep them coming in.
So, what's the bottom of my bed going to look like? So I've got oily feet and a bar of soap down there.
And the cat.
And the cat and the dog.
And Timmy and Rex. Jonathan says on Cummings... Jonathan.
Oh, yes.
Dominic Cummings, not Jonathan. Jonathan's been in touch about Dominic Cummings, saying, like you said, Ellie, Cummings disappears and then pops up again. He's like an angry meerkat.
I don't know.
Oh.
I just sort of think, get elected, or at least stand for election, or... you know, but anyway, he's a man who thinks he should be heard. Maybe he's a man you agree with. I don't know. It's all very... I'm always a little bit suspicious of people who work very closely with someone and then stab them in the back.
Oh, yeah.
Which is obviously what he did with Boris Johnson.
Yeah, that's what some people claim about Rishi Sunak, isn't it, as well?
Oh, indeed, yes. I hadn't really thought of that, but yeah. So
anyway,
there you go.
Keep those views coming in. Loads on restless leg syndrome. Really got you going this morning.
Oh,
what a help.
mentioned it.
It's very good.
All right,
chocolate. Do you eat a lot of sweet stuff before bed?
No.
Gay says that's what it is, sweet stuff before bed.
I'm a type 1 diabetic.
Oh.
I don't eat a lot of sweet stuff ever.
And Connor says you need a celery juice.
Celery juice?
I want to make you a list. GBnews.com/you'll say. More tips and tricks for Stephen Dixon, please.
Have my face with celery, my feet with oil and soap. It's only about an hour to get to bed.
And a celery juice on your bedside table.
There you go. Lovely neck.
There you go.
Doesn't sound remotely pleasant, does it?
It doesn't.
All right, let's go to the States, should we? Former porn star Stormy Daniels has concluded her testimony at Donald Trump's hush money trial, fighting off all inquiries into her account of the alleged sexual encounter between her and the former president.
Well, it follows a scathing attack by the judge who blamed Trump's lawyers for letting Daniels describe lurid details as he denied Trump a mistrial for the second time this week.
Earlier, we spoke to political analyst Eric Ham.
Said was pretty striking. He says that, look, you actually brought this up when you said in your opening that Donald Trump did not have an affair with this woman. So therefore, it was only right for her to go into detail to describe her relationship, to actually paint for the jury that, in fact, this did happen. And he did say that, and he admonished Donald Trump's lawyers that they could have actually objected to many of the things that were said by Stormy Daniels. I do believe that depending on what happens with the verdict, I do believe that we perhaps will see an appeal by Donald Trump's lawyers, looking specifically at some of the things that, of course, we heard from Stormy Daniels during her time when she provided testimony.
Did we hear anything new from Stormy Daniels in this testimony, or was it more about adding context to this case?
No, we did not. This was the first time, of course, that we actually heard her at a criminal trial under oath actually testifying. And, of course, again, the jury, and I think that's the most important thing we have to recognize here, they actually got a chance to see how, in fact, she would hold up to the scrutiny being cross-examined by Donald Trump's lawyers about this relationship that she had with Donald Trump. But again, this is a case about falsifying business records. And so while we know that it was definitely a spectacle to hear from Stormy Daniels, the central issue of this case is, did, in fact, Donald Trump actually falsify business records? It's clear that Donald Trump actually paid Stormy Daniels $130,000, but that's not what he's on trial for. And that is not actually what that is not actually what he's being tried for and what he will be convicted for ultimately. And right now, I think the prosecution still has this burden that they have to actually show that Donald Trump did, in fact, falsify these records.
Why was there another call from his team for a mistrial?
Well, again, I think that's pretty much par for the course for a defense that would actually ask for a mistrial. I think what we saw today was they thought that there were some holes in Stormy Daniels' testimony, which is why they believe that much of the information that she provided not only was prejudicial, but also I think what we saw from them is that they think that she went over the line in describing this relationship she had with Donald Trump.
And Eric, just briefly, because we are running out of time, but how would you say this is affecting Donald Trump personally and in the polls?
Well, in the polls, it's having a tremendous effect. We are now seeing that Joe Biden is leading in the polls in another key battleground state of Wisconsin. And so the more Donald Trump stays off the campaign trail, the more difficult it is for him to be able to find some distance between him and Joe Biden as we head into November.
OK, 19 minutes past 7. Let's take a look at some other stories coming into the newsroom this morning.
And it's breaking news this morning. Official figures show the UK is out of recession. The economy returned to growth in the first quarter of this year after 2 consecutive quarters of decline. Still pretty flat, though. GDP rising just 0.6% between January and March. It follows a 0.3% decline in the final 3 months of last year. The Chancellor said it's proof the economy is returning to full health. The Shadow Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, says people are still worse off.
Israel's Eden Golan has qualified for the final of the Eurovision Song Contest on Saturday. That's despite being booed throughout the rehearsals and live events. Protesters want Israel banned in the same manner that Russia was for its involvement in a controversial conflict. Police managed to see off thousands of pro-Palestinian demonstrators who were surrounding the stadium.
And here's a lovely one for you. 9-year-old Tony Hudgell has been re-invited to Buckingham Palace. He missed the garden party on Wednesday because they got stuck in traffic. He's a double amputee. He's raised £2 million for charity and he spent much of his life getting specialist and life-saving treatment. And as you said, he's got a very special reason for wanting to go and see the King, hasn't he?
Yeah, he has apparently said he wanted to go and check that the King was all right.
Oh,
because he's heard that he's had some treatment. He was like, I just wanted to check the King was OK. So sweet. And he's double amputee and he's only 9 years old. And he wants to check on the King. Very sweet. Yeah. So I'm sure, as you say, he's going to have a very special invitation, maybe a one-on-one with the King. I hope so, anyway. He deserves it.
I think that'll happen.
What a lovely little boy.
I think that'll happen. I think it'll be smashing. Right, here's one from Maureen. And
Morning, Maureen.
I have some sympathy with you, Maureen, because I get very annoyed whenever they talk about shipyards and things, and people go on about Barrow in Furness, and it's Furness. Furnace, and it drives us mad. Maureen says, please pronounce Barnard Castle properly, not Barnard. Barnard Castle. It's single flat A's, not elongated A's. I'm ashamed of you, Stephen, says Maureen.
Oh, no.
As a northerner, you should know better. We locals wonder where this place is. You don't say Buckingham Palace. All the presenters seem to do this, and it's awful for the people of Barney. Thank you.
Right, so it's
Barnard.
Barnard Castle, not Barnard.
Barnard.
That's what I was saying. Sorry, Maureen. Barnard Castle. Is that right? Let me know, Maureen. Barnard.
Barnard, not Barnard.
Barnard Castle.
Barnard. Maureen, Barnard. Is that right?
Let us know.
Message back in. Barnard. And we'll get it right.
Barnard Castle.
Barnard.
That sounds right to me now. Now I've said it like
Barnard.
that. Yeah. Keep those
I suppose I only said Barnard because everyone seems to say Barnard.
Yeah.
But if everyone's wrong, then we need to know about it.
Well, we need to know from a local, somebody who's actually there. And Helen's been in touch saying blue and green should never be seen. Is a colour saying that may have originated from Yorkshire. Stephen and Ellie are breaking the rules this morning. You've got a bit of both on your tie.
No.
Oh, no, not blue.
No. You sure? Because of the suit?
Blue and green should never be seen.
Well, it's a very dark blue.
Yeah.
Give over.
Sorry, Helen.
What are you talking about?
We're in trouble today, Stephen.
No, nonsense. That is... There, that's... There. What's wrong with that?
It's lovely. Lovely and green.
Oh, you can't suit some people.
Lucky Jim says, by George, I think he's got it. I think that's about Barnard Castle.
Barnard.
And Jim says it's Barnard Castle. I don't think. I'm not sure about that. Anyway.
David says, is Stephen wearing one of his dad's ties?
Oh.
So old-fashioned, not like him. How dare you? Actually, no, you can tell if I was ever wearing one of my dad's ties, and of course they come out here. Your big kipper ties.
Of course they do. Yeah, of course they do, yeah.
Big kipper ties. No, this is new. It's cheeky.
Don't upset him now. He really likes his ties.
This is
He takes real pride in them.
Oh,
So-
I can't say that on television.
Yeah, you can say anything.
It's new.
But
I bought this to match your frocks.
you did. He's very good. He matches all of them.
Honestly, you've no taste, you lot. David Oddie.
Anyway, should we have a look at the weather? I think it's best we have a little break.
I think we're better. I'm getting hot under the collar. Let me tie off.
Let's have a look at the weather with Alex.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning. Here's your latest GB News weather brought to you by the Met Office. The fine and often sunny weather many of us have had recently will continue for a little while yet. Yes, there are some mist and fog patches around first thing this morning, but these will quickly burn back because there'll be plenty of sunshine around. Lots of bright blue skies on offer as we head into the afternoon. A bit more cloud towards Shetland, a little bit of rain here, and elsewhere 1 or 2 showers possible. Most places staying dry and in the sunshine, feeling even warmer than yesterday. Highs of around 24 or 25 Celsius. Little change as we go through this evening and overnight. It is going to stay settled. A lot of the cloud will actually clear away, so clear skies for many of us, though some low cloud pushing in from the North Sea across some eastern parts, and elsewhere a few pockets of mist and fog are possible. Temperatures generally dropping to high single figures or low double digits. We start Saturday on a fine note for many places, though quite cloudy towards eastern parts. Again, any mist and fog will quickly burn back, and then once more another largely fine day for many of us. Just watch out for the potential for some showers to develop over high ground towards northern England, and some of these could be heavy. Temperatures even higher than today for some of us, highs of around 25, possibly 26 Celsius. On Sunday, there's the risk of some showery rain, which could turn heavy, possibly thundery, developing across western parts. Further east, however, it's likely to stay largely dry. Again, plenty of sunshine here, and temperatures could get even higher with highs of 26 or 27.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
You've got to have some sympathy with Miss Costello because she is a southerner.
I'm from Essex.
I mean, it's a shame. It's a shame. But Mr. Booker's been in touch this morning saying... So Barnard, right?
Yeah.
Is right, but not Castle. Castle.
Barnard Castle.
Yeah, Castle.
That's really difficult to say. Barnard Castle.
Right.
So he went driving to Barnard Castle.
Castle. Yeah,
There
not
you go.
Castle.
Let me know if you like the sound of that.
Barnard Castle. Right, we're getting it right. We'll get there, but... Castle.
Castle. All right, we're getting there. By the end of the programme, I'll be a fully fledged northerner.
You will be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's rubbing off on me.
Good.
Now, it's time for our giveaway now, and we want to say a big congratulations to Jake from London, who won our last Great British Giveaway. Here's the moment we called to tell him that he was a winner.
Jake, I've got some really good news for you. You're the winner of the Great British Giveaway.
No, I'm not. What?
You are. You've won the cruise, the travel gifts, and you've also won £10,000.
Do you know what? I've never won anything like this in my life.
Well, congratulations.
Yes, I wasn't expecting that.
How does it feel?
I'm in shock. Like I said, I've never won anything like this, and I almost didn't. It didn't pick up.
You see, it's always worth answering your phone.
Yeah.
Obviously, that cruise is for 2 people, so I don't know who you're going to take.
Well, I think my partner would be quite annoyed if I didn't take her.
Well, we hope you... I think you thought you had slightly longer there, didn't you?
That's a little bit longer on that.
It's like Puff the Magic Dragon.
Whoever Jake's going to take, it's going to be fabulous because that prize is worth £20,000. £20,000, and that's what you could win in cash, tax-free cash.
Yeah. It's our biggest cash prize to date, and here's how. It could be yours.
It's the biggest cash prize we've given away to date. An incredible £20,000 that you could use however you like. And because it's totally tax-free, every single penny will be in your bank account to do whatever you like with. £20,000 in tax-free cash really could be yours this summer. But you've got to be in it to win it. For another chance to win £20,000 in tax-free cash, text WIN to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB05 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 31st of May. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
You've got them all going now.
Have we?
Yeah, I think a few people might have caught that.
Oh, right. There you go. Right, Cornish MP has urged the government to provide more funding for coastal communities. We're going to discuss that in just a couple of minutes.
GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio and online.
This is GB News,
Britain's news channel.
We're GB News, and we come from a proud tradition of British journalism.
That's why I'm so excited to be here. It's something so new.
The first news channel to be launched in Britain in over 30 years.
Launched to represent the views of the British people.
To go where other broadcasters refuse to go.
How did you find out about the story in the first place?
Launched with one aim.
To be the fearless champion of Britain.
It's an absolutely fantastic atmosphere here.
This is GB News.
GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And why it matters to you. From your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you. Good afternoon, Britain. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Nana Acquia. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and this is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Mark Dolan, and this is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and this is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to breakfast. Now, a Cornish MP is calling on the government to pump more money into coastal communities across the United Kingdom. Steve Double says funding, currently earmarked for rural communities, doesn't trickle down to coastal areas. He's now urging the government to recognise the need for better provision in our seaside towns. Our South West of England reporter, Jeff Moody, has more.
Sam Richardson is a singer-songwriter from St Agnes in Cornwall. Much of his music reflects a sense of frustration with life in a coastal town.
We've got a lot of empty shops in a lot of our town centres, which is sort of causing a lot of death on the high street. I know that's a problem everywhere, but it is particularly bad down in Cornwall. I think that infrastructure as well, for me, is like a really big problem down here. Our roads are just rammed all the time.
Similar problems across the border in Devon. Ilfracombe is the most deprived area in North Devon. Twice the town has applied for levelling up funding. Twice it's been turned down, something North Devon MP Selene Saxby says is frustrating.
It's very complicated. It's not as straightforward as just throwing money at the problem. They're very deep issues. And I think, the Nick Whitty report highlighted some of the health inequalities that you see around the coast, on top of some of the property challenges. I think, stood here today in this wind, you can see just maintaining properties in areas like this is significantly harder.
For several years, the government has acknowledged that rural areas need extra help, but so far that help doesn't stretch to our coasts. The MP for St Austell and Newquay is pushing the government to change all this.
Truly local people are finding it really challenging because we often have sort of low wage seasonal work, but very high house prices pushed up because of second homes and holiday lets, etc. And also, I think the disparity review that Theresa May carried out when she was Prime Minister highlighted that working class white boys in coastal communities are some of the most disadvantaged people in the country.
Struggling to get on the housing ladder, struggling to find work, struggling to be heard.
It's interesting that a member of the party that's in government recognises that, which is great, because it is a really important thing. But that government, for the last 10 years, has also cut £500 million in youth services around the country. So not only have you got disaffected young men searching for community, there isn't anywhere for them to go. They're finding these communities in dark areas of the internet. That's the only place that they're finding this. And when you're disaffected and you're disillusioned, it's so much more easy to become radicalized. Imagine if we could raise all of our young men to be, look, life over the last however many thousands of years has swayed towards the benefit of, white guys. And we need to make sure that we make this a more equal and progressive society. So it's your responsibility as a young male to bring people from the LGBTQ plus community into the fold and make sure that they feel safe and heard and understood. And it's your responsibility to do the same thing with women, make sure that they feel safe and understood and heard in these discussions, and not say, there's no room for you in this conversation. We're going to speak to all of the people that it involves, which is obviously great that they have a seat, but I feel like a lot of young white working class lads don't feel like they have a seat at the table anymore.
No one thinks the problem of coastal deprivation can be solved overnight. The issue of disaffected young white males even harder. Jeff Moody, GB News.
Right, lots still to come for you, including Aidan McGee, who's going to have all your sport in a couple of minutes.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In Tyne and Wear, Hendon Close in Sunderland is closed because of a fire. In East Yorkshire, the A165 is partly blocked by an accident on Beverley Road south of Beeford. Mersey Ferry commuter sailings are cancelled this morning because of low tides, with replacement bus running between Seacombe and Hamilton Square. In Derbyshire, the A38 is closed northbound off the A61 at Little Eaton Island because of a fallen tree. There's reduced rail service on a number of routes in England again today because of an overtime ban by rail workers, with buses running between Leamington Spa and Nuneaton, between Brentford and Bletchley, and between Watford Junction and St Albans Abbey. On the M25 in Kent, the inside lanes closed clockwise where a car transport has broken down at Junction 1B at Dartford. Delays from the QE2 bridge, and there's also a lane closed clockwise at Junction 5 for the M26 where a lorry's broken down, with queues from Junction 4 at Orpington. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
We're GB News, and we come from a proud tradition of British journalism.
That's why I'm so excited to be here. It's something so new.
The first news channel to be launched in Britain in over 30 years.
Launched to represent the views of the British people.
To go where other broadcasters refuse to go.
How did you find out about the story in the first place?
Launched with one aim.
To be the fearless champion of Britain.
It's an absolutely fantastic atmosphere here.
This is GB News.
GB News, Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry, Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threat and so on.
Our job is to do what's in the best interest of our country.
You made my argument for me. My guests and I tackle the issues that really matter, with a sharp take on every story.
I'm hearing it up and down the country. That was a beginning, not an end.
Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel. GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio, and online.
This is GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to breakfast. The time is 7:39. Time to go through the sports now with Aidan. Morning.
Good to see you both again.
Yeah, good to see you. Should we start with Nadal?
Yes, why not? Look, he is somebody who's suffered badly from injuries all over his body, actually, in the last couple of years, since he won the Australian Open in 2022. Coming from behind to beat Daniel Medvedev that time. He's 22 Grand Slams. He's since been overtaken by Novak Djokovic, but ominously, this was always the tournament he won on clay before he got to Paris next month for the French Open. That's where he's won 13 titles. He's won 10 in Rome at the Italian Open. He came from behind yesterday to win in 3 sets against the Belgian qualifier Zizou Berg. So somebody on paper he shouldn't really have had problems with. But these opponents now, even if they're quite lowly ranked, they'll look at someone like Nadal and think, this is a major scalp now. We're never going to have a better chance to beat him because, let's face it, it looks as if it's going to be Nadal's last year on the tournament or on the circuit. And I think we're getting to the stage now. Well, I hope we're not, in a way, because we seem to cheer every single Andy Murray victory because he has avoided injury and got through, but he never seems to get very far. I hope that's not going to be the case with Rafa Nadal as he winds down his career, because this is somebody...
Has he got an injury?
He's not right now, no, not right now, but he has had back problems and knee problems. I mean, he's had knee problems throughout his career. I mean, you do wonder how many tournaments he would have won had he not been beset by injury for all those times. So, look, he looked good yesterday. He's still very early in the competition, but it looked ominous yesterday that he could be ready for the French Open next month, where, of course, he's so dominant. He's known as the King of Clay. And I've spent some time with him over there a few years ago. I remember being in a restaurant, and he came over and chatted to me for 5-10 minutes. He didn't know me, but he gave up his time, and I just thought, what a fantastic guy.
Yeah. I hope he hasn't got restless leg. That'd add to his problem.
We've got loads of ways of solving that anyway.
Yeah,
Just take one look at our, our forum.
Can we talk about Todd Boehly in Chelsea?
Yeah, why not? Look, Chelsea have had a very difficult season, but since Christmas, I think they've shown more signs of positivity than negativity. They've had some bad results as well. 17 days ago, of course, they lost 5-0 at Arsenal, but since then, they've beaten West Ham 5-0. They won against Tottenham 2-0 before then. They're 7th in the table. They've got a fighting chance of getting into Europe, which nobody really thought was possible probably about a month ago. And Mauricio Pochettino, he didn't have a very good season in his first year at Spurs, but they persevered with him because they know that some managers make an instant impact, Stephen, and that's why you get them in to win 4 games out of 6 and steer you clear of relegation trouble or get you into the Champions League or whatever. Other managers need a bit more time. And Mauricio Pochettino is definitely a project guy. Project guys are going out of fashion because people want success instantaneously. And so Todd Boehly has said yesterday, look, we can see where the plan's coming good now. We can see signs that what we're trying to do... Don't forget, they spent £1 billion on this thing in the last 18 months. And they can see where the green shoots of recovery are for Chelsea. This is a club that... They were serial winners. They won 5 Premier League titles since Abramovich bought the club in 2003 and 2 Champions Leagues, of course. And so there are signs, and Mauricio Pochettino, though, for his part, he said, you'll have to ask the club if they want me to stay next season. So it's still very much up in the air, but positivity there from Pochettino, signs that there might be some stability, and as I say, Chelsea have got some big games coming up. They could still get into Europe, and that might buy them some more time.
Yeah, and some more money.
Well, yeah, he probably will, because there've been a lot of transfers there that failed.
Aidan, we're out of time, but we'll see you a little bit later on. Thank you.
Do stay with us. We're going to be going through the papers shortly with Mike Buckley and Suzanne Evans. That's next.
I'm Gloria Di Piero. This is GB News, Britain's election channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Now, a woman who 25 years ago, at the age of just 14, tortured and killed her 71-year-old grandmother was last month released from prison on licence.
But this isn't the first time she's been let out. Sarah Davey has been bailed and reincarcerated no less than 7 times.
Well, to debate this, we're joined by former Detective Chief Inspector Colin Sutton, famed for catching the notorious killer of Millie Dowler, Levi Belfield, and GB News' own Patrick Christie's.
I think we have to qualify that where the killer is a child, and we have to accept that to consign somebody to be in prison for 60, 70 or 80 years is probably something that we ought to think twice about. So I understand why this happens. I understand the outrage. I really understand the outrage. I think that 14-year-olds who kill should be given a chance to rehabilitate? Yes, I do. Do I think that somebody who's had 7 such chances and blown them away deserves an 8th chance? Then probably I think that's a lot more doubtful.
I would have thought that by chance, sort of 3 or 4, they'd have got the picture, but clearly not. Patrick, what do you make of it all?
Well, some people are born evil, aren't they? And why should we have to suffer to have them back out on the streets? There are some crimes that are so serious that you should pay for it either with your life or for the rest of your life. This was a sadistic murder, the details of which absolutely cannot be read out on air at this particular time of day. There are 3 issues here. Is this justice for the families of victims? I just think a release like this is a slap in the face, really, to us all. It's another example of soft justice. And just because she's a child, well, she was old enough to commit the heinous crime she committed.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Nigel Farage, and this is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Let's have a look at the papers for you this morning with former Labour advisor Mike Buckley and political commentator Suzanne Evans. Good to see you both this morning. Let's kick off with a bit of truancy on a Friday.
Well, it's a bit more than a bit, actually, because truancy apparently has gone up hugely since COVID lockdowns, when we were told not to send our children to school. And the thing is, it's up by 1/5 on a Friday. So there are 20% more kids, particularly at primary school age, not in school on a Friday than there are on a Wednesday. And so Gillian Keegan, the Education Secretary, is now doing a big push to try and get children, look, for goodness sake, get your kids into school. She's written a piece in the Times saying that's 5 or 6 lessons a day that they'll never get back. They miss all the social stuff and elements of school as well. So you've got to send your kids to school on a Friday. But as I say, we had, the best part of 2 years being told that school was not essential. And interestingly, the Centre
Well, that's not what they said.
Well, they kind of did.
Come on.
Like, they might not have said school is not essential, but in effect they said you can educate your children just as well as home. That's fine. Your children don't need to go to school. And interestingly, the Centre for Social Justice Studies has done surveys of parents, and apparently 3 out of 10 parents think that, yeah, that was the message, basically, school isn't essential. So now, of course, yet again, at another issue, COVID lockdowns have led to another problem.
People use that as an excuse, though.
Mike, what do you make of it? Because Gillian Keegan's saying we need to let go of this COVID-era expectation.
I mean, we do, but I mean, and I'm not one often to kind of stand up and defend the government, but in the middle of COVID, they had no option but to close the schools down and to tell us all to stay at home. And people were dying horrendously from a pandemic, and everyone was saying, oh, children are at risk. Actually, children were at risk, partly because they could still get COVID and die, and also because they could get long COVID like anybody else. So they had to stay at home because, of course, otherwise they could have transmitted it to parents or grandparents as well. So we had to deal with it. However, what the government should have done clearly is after lockdown make sure that they were properly getting parents and getting kids back in school, which just hasn't happened. I mean, the rate of truancy climbed up to 7%. It's still at 7%. The government is saying, oh, we're doing things. But honestly, writing a piece in the Times isn't going to change this.
Well,
the government needs to do something that's much more proactive.
To be fair to them, and I'm not one to stand up for the government either, but to be fair, they have had a big campaign on this and trying to reduce absenteeism. But it's simply not working because, as I say, I think that fundamental message is there. School is a lovely thing to have, but it's not absolutely essential, and you can educate your child at home.
But they're not educating their children.
Well, of course they're not. They're probably going on holiday. Yes, of course they are, Stephen. But, you know, the fact, like Gillian Keegan in The Times blames the pandemic. It wasn't the pandemic, it was the lockdown policies, which other countries, such as Sweden, didn't do, and their death rate's been no different to ours.
Mike, let's take a look at the Mirror, shall we? And this is a very distressing headline. Almost 1/5 of 16-year-olds have felt that life is not worth living due to social media content.
Yeah, so there's a piece here in the Mirror, and they're talking about, you know, various awful things that teenagers see online, whether it's self-harm or it's people talking about suicide or it's, you know, sexual content or violent content or whatever. Obviously on things like Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. And I mean, we know this because this has been talked about so much in recent months, and I'm very glad that it's talked about so much in recent months. However, nobody's done anything. The government hasn't done anything. Social media companies haven't done anything. Everybody's acknowledged the problem. They're just carrying on regardless. Something has to change here. I don't know what that is. I don't know whether it's saying that young people can't use social media until they're 16, or whether it's having phones introduced at a later time in their development. But this current situation is unsustainable. Huge harm is being done to these young people's mental health. Some of them, very sadly, I'm sure, will be taking their lives or self-harming or you know, acting out in other ways. So, I mean, I'm not an expert on this. I don't know what the solution is, but I don't want things to stay as they are. And what I do want to see from this government or the next government is a very credible plan to address this.
I think, again, they are trying to do something. There's the online harms bill that's being brought forward. There was a talk a couple of weeks ago that they'd prevent children under 16 having a mobile phone or buying a mobile phone. That was really kicked into touch, I think, on personal freedom grounds, really. But I think the whole point about trying to crack down on this is the problem. What I think we've got here is a new addiction. I think social media use now has become an addiction, particularly for young people. And personally, I think that's the way we need to treat it. Interestingly, the article in the Mirror talks about how half of all children are still on their phones after midnight. Now, that's not healthy. No. And that, I think, is a sign of an addiction. And I think that's what kids need to be told. It is possible to get addicted to these things in the same way that you need to put down the alcoholic drink or, you know, put down that extra chocolate biscuit or whatever it might be, or don't do drugs. You need to get a grip on that. And I'd argue that's the way the policy should be going myself.
Maybe.
Suzanne, let's stay with you, shall we? And should children pay rent?
Yeah, this is an article in the Mail by Tom Utley, whose 30-year-old son is still living at home. And he says, you know, he gets to raid the fridge whenever he wants to. He gets his house cleaned, his room cleaned. He gets all his washing and ironing done. He doesn't have to lift a finger around the house, but he still cannot bring himself to charge him rent.
Well, he's weak and parents.
Well, this is interesting, Stephen, because this is a growing problem. You know, more and more 20 to 37 to 34-year-olds are living at home now, up considerably in the last sort of 10, 15 years, because for obvious reasons. We all know why. But, yeah, the big question, I think, that's gripping the nation is, do you charge your grown-up children rent or not?
Because otherwise you're doing your kids a disservice. If your child stops education and goes into a job at 16, you should be charging them board and lodgings.
Well, Tom's argument...
Because often it's you know, it's like peppercorn, isn't it? You're not paying a huge amount, but certainly if they're a full-grown adult, and with a job, you need to be charging them proper money.
What would you suggest as proper money?
Well, but, you know, it depends what the job is, but, you know, at least £500 a month, £125 a week. I mean, it's peanuts.
Oh, that sounds a lot.
That does sound like a lot.
I think that sounds a lot.
A room for 800.
I must admit, I couldn't have done it.
Yeah.
I couldn't have done it. I couldn't. I'm too much of a wimp. And
Well,
Tom
that is
Utley's
wimpish.
argument is he says, you know, I earn more than my son earns in one day than he does in a week.
Yeah, but
So he says, I can't do it.
But you don't do your kids any favour, because then suddenly when they say, all right, I'm going to move out, and suddenly they find they've got no money. And they're like, well, they've got nothing left. And then people turn around and say, what's the point in working? I haven't got any money.
What about if they're pumping it all into their savings, though, in order to move out? Would you support them in doing
No,
that?
I should still think you should... I mean, there's an awful lot of people, a lot of parents who charge board and actually put it to one side and then turn
Give it
around
back
and
to
say,
them.
this is a deposit for your
Oh,
house.
that's a good
or
idea.
This will pay for your wedding.
That's
or
a very good idea. I like that idea.
That's
This
the way
is
of doing
northern
things.
ideas.
Is that what you do
Proper
then?
northern
More of them.
ideas.
I think that's quite patronising.
Do you?
Yeah,
What?
I do.
What?
To take money and put it aside and then go, oh, you can have it back now. I just think that's quite...
Oh, no,
I just
that's
think that's not
nice.
retreat. I just think it's not retreating them as an adult. I mean, if I had
Yeah,
kids
but you
at
don't
home...
tell them that
If I had
you're
kids at
doing
home, I wouldn't be charging them rent. I'd be like, you're my child, of course I'm not charging you rent. This is your home, you can be here any time.
That's pathetic.
You know?
No, I think that's nice.
If that's pathetic, I would be very happy to be pathetic.
But you're not...
You know?
You're doing them a disservice.
Are you, though?
Because yes, you are, because you're saying, well, you're going to earn, you know, you're going out to earn, and then all of this money that you're earning is yours to play with, to do what you want, and that's not reality, is it?
I would advise them on what to do with the money. I mean, I would say the best thing you can do if you want to move out of the family home, which you probably do, is put some aside and save it. But if you just want to go and splurge it, then I mean, it's just being a young person and growing up, isn't it? I think.
No, but you've got to teach a young person responsibility.
But the bigger picture is, none of this is solving the housing crisis. We've got a housing crisis in this country because we haven't built enough homes for donkeys. But this is the real problem, isn't it? They want to move out, they can't move out because rents are sky high. We haven't got enough housing in this country, and they can't go on the housing ladder because house prices are sky high.
Well,
you know, we're all talking around the actual crisis, which nobody's dealing with.
Would you charge your kids board and lodging, or have you done it? gbnews.com/yourso. Here's the weather.
Thank you, you too.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning. Here's your latest GB News weather brought to you by the Met Office. The fine and often sunny weather many of us have had recently will continue for a little while yet. Yes, there are some mist and fog patches around first thing this morning, but these will quickly burn back because there'll be plenty of sunshine around. Lots of bright blue skies on offer as we head into the afternoon. There are a bit more cloud towards Shetland, a little bit of rain here, and elsewhere 1 or 2 showers possible. Most places staying dry and in the sunshine, feeling even warmer than yesterday. Highs of around 24 or 25 Celsius. Little change as we go through this evening and overnight. It is going to stay settled. A lot of the cloud will actually clear away, so clear skies for many of us, though some low cloud pushing in from the North Sea across some eastern parts, and elsewhere a few pockets of mist and fog are possible. Temperatures generally dropping to high single figures or low double digits. We start Saturday on a fine note for many places, though quite cloudy towards eastern parts. Again, any mist and fog will quickly burn back, and then once more another largely fine day for many of us. Just watch out for the potential for some showers to develop over high ground towards northern England, and some of these could be heavy. Temperatures even higher than today for some of us, highs of around 25, possibly 26 Celsius. On Sunday, there's the risk of some showery rain, which could turn heavy, possibly thundery, developing across western parts. Further east, however, it's likely to stay largely dry. Again, plenty of sunshine here, and temperatures could get even higher with highs of 26 or 27.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In Tyne and Wear, Hendon Close in Sunderland is closed between High Street East and Borough Road after a fire on Villiers Street. Mersey Ferry commuter sailings are suspended this morning because of low tide. Bus running between Seacombe and Hamilton Square. In Derbyshire, the A38's closed northbound off the A61 at Little Eaton Island because of a fallen tree causing queues. There's a reduced rail service on a number of routes in England again today because of an overtime ban by rail workers, with buses replacing trains between Leamington Spa and Nuneaton, between Bedford and Bletchley and between Watford Junction and St Albans Abbey. On the M25 in Kent, the inside lanes closed clockwise at junction 5 for the M26, where a lorry's broken down. There are queues from junction 4 at Orpington and back along the M26 towards they're not helped by roadworks. And at Bridgend, the A4064 is closed each way between Pantagog and Pontaril after an accident. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
The next Great British Giveaway winner could be you, with a massive £20,000 in tax-free cash to be won. Imagine how you'd react getting that winning call from us.
Hi, my name's Phil Cox, and I won the Great British Giveaway. I'd say, why not? What is it? The price of a text and £2 to enter. And if I can win it, anybody can win it. And they're going to get even more money this time round, so why wouldn't you go in the draw?
For another chance to win £20,000 in tax-free cash, text prize to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB05 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 31st of May. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
We're GB News, and we come from a proud tradition of British journalism.
That's why I'm so excited to be here. It's something so new.
The first news channel to be launched in Britain in over 30 years.
Launched to represent the views of the British people.
To go where other broadcasters refuse to go.
How did you find out about the story in the first place?
Launched with one aim.
To be the fearless champion of Britain.
It's an absolutely fantastic atmosphere here.
This is GB News.
GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial.
With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers.
I agree.
And that's precisely what I'll get.
Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
Good morning to you. It's 8 o'clock, Friday the 10th of May. Today, Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer is set to unveil plans to use terror laws in order to combat small boat crossings.
Yes, the Conservatives like to say that Labour have no plan for dealing with the small boats crisis, but in fact they do. We're going to hear it this morning. I'll bring you more details shortly.
Brexit architect Dominic Cummings plans to create a new party that he hopes will replace the Tories.
A judge denies Donald Trump's request for a mistrial in his hush money case as Stormy Daniels concludes her testimony.
3 Boeing plane crashes in just 2 days, calling into question the aircraft manufacturer's safety record.
And are your cats feline chipper? Lord, as a new change in the law could see you fined if you don't get your pets microchipped.
Good morning. Rafa Nadal progresses at the Italian Open in Rome. Could his return to form and fitness be just in time for a final tilt at French Open glory next month? We'll find out later. In Manchester, meanwhile, United's treble-winning stars of '99 are celebrated on their 25th anniversary at a glitzy red carpet event in the city.
Morning. The fine weather's going to stick around for a little while yet, but it's not set to last through the whole weekend. I'll have more on that coming up.
Morning to you. I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Ellie Costello, and this is Breakfast on GB News. Oh, you've got everyone on your side this morning.
With rent,
Yeah.
charging your kids board and lodgings.
Yeah. Sue says 100% agree with Stephen. You should charge rent. Your children do not benefit by not being given realities of life.
Sheila says you're definitely doing your children a disservice by not charging your child rent. Taylor says my nan used to charge me board. She saved it and gave it back to me when I moved out to live with my husband.
I quite like that. Is that something that you would do? Give it back to them?
Yeah, probably. I mean, I know...
You so would as well.
I know
He's a right big softie, aren't you?
No.
It's like the other day...
Hard as nails. Hard as nails.
No, he pretends like he is, but the other day we were going out for breakfast, weren't we? And I said I wanted to go to this really expensive place. And Stephen said, no, it's too expensive. But then I left it about 3 seconds and he went, oh, go on then. We'll go to the nice place for breakfast.
Yes.
There you go.
Phil Alexander says, I charge my son rent when he's back in the house when he returns, but it soon gets into his pocket by magic. I often hear my own voice saying, here's £20 to go out.
Ah.
Yeah, but that's
love.
But it's not about the money, is it? It's about teaching them that a proportion of your income is not yours to spend. In that sense, it's not there to play at you to go down the pub with or go on holiday with, or you've got to put it aside for what matters in life, for bills and rent and all the rest of it. There's someone messaged, I can't find it now, saying £500. So I was saying, well, here we go, Leslie. I nearly spurted out my tea when Stephen said £500 a month for board and lodgings. That's for a full, proper grown adult. My son, who is 22, pays £30 a week and think that's exorbitant, and he earns £2,000 a month. But apparently I'm the unreasonable one. £2,000 a month, and he's paying £120 a month for board and lodging.
See, I think 500 is quite steep.
I don't know. If you were out renting somewhere, it's going to cost you more.
Yeah, but you're
than
not. You're living at home with mum and dad.
Yeah, but you're also getting all your washing done and the cleaning done and probably the cooking done.
I think 500 is quite a lot.
Are you even paying for food? Probably not. Probably mum goes and does the shopping.
Yeah.
So actually, it's a bargain.
I think 500 is quite steep. I just think you could be in a room by yourself.
Yeah, but then you'd have your bills to pay on top of that, and your food bills and your council tax, and you're not paying any of that.
Mark Sharrock says, my son still lives with us. He's 27. He earns around 25k. We charge him £120 a month. It's been like that for 10 years. I'd feel mean to charge him anymore.
No, I think you should. I think you should, because otherwise how's he going to learn? And if he does have to get his own... It's that thing, he's going to get his own place and suddenly, 50% of his income's gone. He'll feel like he's really missing out on life. Get him into the habit. It's about education. Wow. I'm tough on this one.
He is very tough. He is very, very tough. Yeah, do keep those views coming in. There was just something on Dominic Cummings here. Mark Riley, this is on news that Dominic Cummings is unveiling plans for a new party to, he hopes, replace the Tories. Mark Riley's been in touch saying, how on earth is Dominic Cummings going to form a new party? How could anyone work with this man? He can't be trusted with anything private. He's unloyal. How could anyone trust that man?
Well, there you go. You'll have to see. Well, perhaps some people would disagree with you on that one. Just a couple. I've got to say this. Sue says, my kids paid us rent. They both now have mortgages and savings. I'm proud. Quite rightly. And Chris Hegerton says, I'm an adult child and I pay £900 a month. Oh, good on you.
£900 a month is a lot.
He's paying his way.
Yeah.
You've got to pay your way in life. The world doesn't owe you a living. That's one of my father's favourite turns of phrase.
Oh, you are tough. You are tough. But yeah, everyone's on your side, I think, with that one.
See, common sense.
Yeah.
Common sense prevails. That's what we like.
Yeah.
Oh, who's that? Angela. Stephen is 100% correct. Well, I would leave it at that.
That's all you need to know.
First time for everything. But no, let us know what you think on that one. gbnews.com/yoursay.
Now, Labour is set to launch plans to tackle the small boat crisis today. Let's speak to Yvette Cooper now, the Shadow Home Secretary. Very good to see you this morning, Yvette Cooper. And, well, this is what we've all been waiting for, isn't it? This is Labour's plans to tackle the small boat crossings.
We're setting out a plan today for a new border security command to bring together the work of the National Crime Agency, the Border Force, MI5, police forces, and work with Europol and police forces right across Europe to go after the criminal gangs. They would have new counter-terror style powers and also new resources to be able to recruit many hundreds, up to 1,000 new investigators, cross-border police, because we have to go after the criminal gangs. They are undermining border security and putting lives at risk with these dangerous boat crossings, and that's why this action is so urgently needed.
Right, and that may work, But if the Rwanda plan is proving to work by the time, should you get into office, by the time of a general election, why would you scrap it if it's working?
Well, the thing about the Rwanda scheme is it's only likely to cover a few hundred people, and more people arrived in the last week than that. We've seen nearly 9,000 people arrive this year already on small boats, and yet they're only likely to send 300 people to Rwanda. The Rwanda scheme is a scheme just for 1% of asylum seekers. There's no plan for the 99%.
No, forgive
me. And it's
me.
costing the taxpayer over £500 million. That is a huge sum of money for just a tiny number of people, and that's why we think that money should go into boosting our border security and going after the criminal gangs instead.
But the whole point of the Rwanda scheme is it might be costing 75 million a year, or whatever the figure is, but it's a deterrent. So that cost would go down year on year, wouldn't it? The whole point of it is it stops coming people here. It's not about them all coming over and then shipping them off.
Well, 1% of asylum seekers costing £500 million. That £500 million is only to send a few hundred people. That's not the cost of if they were doing something different. That is the cost of sending just 1%. And that's the problem. There is a reason that Home Office officials themselves have said there's no evidence of a deterrent because this is only applying for 1%. That means 99% of people arriving on small boats, in practice, under the way the government's doing this, actually are able to go into asylum accommodation, into asylum hotels, and stay there indefinitely because nothing is being done. There's no proper programme and there's nothing being done to tackle the criminal gangs. And we saw those awful scenes of people getting onto crowded boats. We saw that awful case of an 8-year-old girl being killed on these boats. The boat crossings are dangerous. They're undermining border security. They're putting lives at risk. You've got to go after the criminal gangs, or they will just find more people to exploit. They will just organise more crossings, whatever it is, and however many checks the government writes to Rwanda.
And what about those that are already here, those who have already made it here illegally on a small boat? Can you confirm or can you rule out that you are not just going to declare an amnesty for those people and essentially wipe the slate clean?
We don't believe in amnesties. We think that's the wrong thing to do. Rules need to be enforced. Proper rules need to be enforced. The problem, what we've got at the moment, is the Conservatives, Rishi Sunak is effectively operating an amnesty for those 99% of people who are arriving because they're not having any decisions made on their cases. That means those who have not fled persecution, those who have no right to be here, are not being returned to their home country. In fact, returns for failed asylum cases have actually dropped by nearly a half since the Conservatives first came to power. So those rules aren't being enforced. That is a chaotic system. What you actually need to do is to properly clear the backlog, but we should be preventing the boat crossings in the first place. And that's why we want to set up this new border security command. And the reason that's important is we're basically learning from what we did on tackling terrorist networks, on the counter-terror work that took place after we had 9/11 and then the 7/7 attacks. Britain completely overhauled the way it dealt with counter-terrorism, bringing all of these agencies and forces together with a comprehensive single strategy to go after terrorists and terror networks and extremists. We need to take the same approach now to our border security because, once again, it is putting lives at risk and undermining the security of the country.
Right, so you tackle the people behind this. That's understandable. You say no amnesty for those people who have come over here illegally. So what do you do to track these people down and get them out of the country?
So you have to have proper systems to go after those criminal gang networks. That means you need proper intelligence networks, you need proper policing and so on.
Forgive me, I'm not talking about the criminal gang members here, I'm talking about the migrants.
Sure, well, We've now going to have to deal with the huge backlog that the Conservatives have now created, because what you have is we've now got around 100,000 people or more in the asylum system. They've arrived, they're now in the asylum system, they're in asylum accommodation, they're in asylum hotels. We're going to have to clear up that mess and that crisis of that backlog that's been created. So we do have a plan to end asylum hotel use and to make sure that decisions are swiftly taken. We would fast track decisions on safe countries so you can fast track those decisions and have proper returns, and also make sure that the UK has always done its bit for those who have fled persecution. For example, Afghan interpreters who helped our armed forces. That's something that really all countries have to do their part on. But at the moment, no decisions are being taken, no rules are being enforced, and we're not seeing those returns taking place. And what we're instead seeing actually is some really shocking exploitation going on.
Look, you're setting out your plans for tackling small boat crossings today. What about Labour's plans for legal migration? Net migration numbers at best part of 750,000 people. That's not sustainable, is it?
So we believe that net migration should come down. You're right that the level has, I think, trebled since the last election. And one of the things that has been behind that has been a really big increase in work visas. Now, look, obviously, the UK has always benefited from people coming from abroad to set up businesses or to provide international top talent. But they had to have this huge increase in work visas, we think, is the wrong approach. And that's why we've said we've got to have a proper plan to tackle the skills shortages that lie behind it. We did propose a series of additional further changes, for example, getting rid of what used to be this 20% discount for overseas workers that the Conservatives brought into the points-based immigration system. We thought that was the wrong approach. What we should be doing instead is getting rid of that. That was a sort of incentive to undercut and to have the overseas recruitment, when actually what we really need is to have a proper plan for training and skills here in the UK, and that's why we've set out plans about how we would do that, reforms to the apprenticeship levy and targeting the key areas where we've got shortages.
Can I just return to the sort of major plan, if you like? I mean, how closely would you have to work with the EU on this? And would they allow us to work more closely? I mean, in effect, it opens up the possibility of us working on other borders, doesn't it? And being involved in policing borders, around the Mediterranean, around the Balkans, where a lot of these people are coming from. It's more integration into the EU, isn't it?
Well, we're outside the EU and we're staying outside the EU, but we should be working with our neighbouring countries on issues around crime, security, those sorts of things. That to me feels like that's a no-brainer. Of course, we should be sharing information on criminals across borders. We're not currently doing that properly. That's one of the things that wasn't sorted out as part of the Brexit agreement. We think that should be sorted out. We should be getting fast information on people who might be wanted for crimes in other countries. We should know that as soon as they arrive at our border. We should know, for example, if somebody has already claimed asylum and been turned down, for example, in Germany or in another country, as soon as they arrive at our border, so that we can then fast track those cases as well. At the moment, we're not sharing that information. So we do want to see that new security cooperation agreement on things like criminal information and intelligence. That benefits everybody. It benefits European countries, it benefits the UK, and it keeps all of our communities safe.
Before we let you go, I did just want to ask you about your new colleague, Natalie Elphicke, who's obviously defected from the Conservatives to Labour. It's no accident, is it, that this speech today is going to be made in her seat in Dover. You're capitalising on her defection, aren't you? And how do you feel about standing next to your new colleague today?
Well, right, I'm in Dover now speaking to you. We are in Natalie Elphicke's constituency. And I think it is significant that the Dover MP, who has really seen the consequences of the small boat crossings, who has been following this policy issue in some detail over many years, has concluded not just that there are huge problems with the government's Rwanda scheme, but also that our approach, that border security approach, going after the criminal gangs in this coordinated way, that is the right way forward. And I hope that other people who may not have voted Labour at the last election, may have voted for many different parties, will look at what Labour is proposing, not just around our border security, but also around the National Health Service, around getting our economy back on track, around support for families dealing with the cost of living crisis that has just had this shocking impact after 14 years of the Conservatives. The chaos has got worse and worse and worse. So I hope that we can welcome more people like Natalie who will have changed their minds to the Labour Party. That's really important to us.
OK, Yvette Cooper, really good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't know how comfortable that is for
other members of the Labour Party.
Well, yeah, I mean, what is interesting in all of this is obviously these discussions have been underway for a while. So has this plan been put to Natalie Elphicke?
I would say,
and she's said, oh, actually, yes, I think that is robust enough. But, you know, Natalie Elphicke hasn't had concerns about the Rwanda plan. She's been pushing for the Rwanda plan very strongly. I mean, it's got to be uncomfortable. I think Yvette Cooper may be a little bit uncomfortable standing next to Natalie Elphicke
Obviously,
today.
she's not going to be...
Not going to say it.
...saying that. But many in the Labour Party have, haven't they?
Oh, yeah. But what do you make of the scheme? I mean, it's an interesting one. It's about stopping it at source. Well, people have talked about that for a long time. Putting that money into, treating it like a sort of anti-terrorism scheme and stopping these criminal gangs, rather than just having a deterrent in Rwanda. Is that something that is going to work for you? Love to know. gbnews.com/yoursay. At least we've got some detail now.
Yes, well, it's what we've been waiting for, isn't it? The Tories have been saying there's no plan. Well, officially now there is. We've just heard it, so let us know what you think. Now, official figures show that the UK is out of a recession.
Yeah. Should we talk to...
Michael Wilson.
Michael Wilson, yeah, who joins us now. Good to see you, Michael. Well, look, we knew this was... We sort of knew this was going to be pretty short, didn't we? But it's quite nice to have officially turned the corner, but we're still quite flat.
Yes, I think bumping along the bottom sort of describes it, really. I don't want to sound too curmudgeonly about these figures, but do remember the ONS, the Office for National Statistics, is the organisation that still fails to get the majority, to get some of its people back in the office after working from home. And GDP figures, whilst they are one of the most important snapshots of the economy, they do get revised year after year. I mean, they're still revising the very first figures from the 1960s. So having so said, what's the importance of these? Well, it's good that growth is back. If we were in a technical recession, we appear to be out of it. That's no bad thing. But the big problem still with the UK, and it doesn't matter which administration is in number 10, is getting Britain back to work. Because at the moment, Britain does not generally work. There are a huge proportion of people who are receiving disability benefits some for good reasons, some maybe not for good reasons. That is the thing, getting the country back to work. I would say that's a statistic. Now, the other thing, and I'm sure that you probably mentioned this yesterday, was the Bank of England decision to leave interest rates on hold. However, a lot of people in the foreign exchange markets and the people in the financial services sector are sort of placing their bets on maybe, just maybe, a cut in interest rate, the interest rate in June. Now, again, the Bank of England was pretty sceptical about the Office for National Statistics, where these growth figures have just come from, by saying that they would much rather have a look at wage growth, they would have a look at inflation in the service sector and the rate of unemployment before they make a decision. Having so said, that, I think, probably is the good news from these 2 days. These figures are very welcome, but I think much more important is the bank's attitude towards it. And if they start cutting interest rates, again, the Fed in the United States didn't do anything. Bank of England very, very keen to say, doesn't matter what they do, we make our own minds up about this. But if there is a general feeling that inflation, not the cost of living, not the cost of things, but the rise in prices, which inflation is, if that is being seen to fall generally throughout the world, then that's a good thing. And then the economy can really start to grow, I think.
OK, Michael Wilson, good to see you this morning. Thank you very much indeed.
Oh, the economy really starting to grow. Sounds like a pipe dream, doesn't it? Wouldn't that be nice? get everything back on track.
It's good news for the Tories, because that's what they've promised, haven't they?
It's a nice picture in the Telegraph this morning of Prince William playing volleyball. I mean, it's a little bit too energetic for me.
He's very sporty, they both
He's very sporty. It was in Newquay yesterday in the lovely weather.
Oh, jealous.
Is it going to be nice today, though? Here's Alex.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning. Here's your latest GB News weather brought to you by the Met Office. The fine and often sunny weather many of us have had recently will continue for a little while yet. Yes, there are some mist and fog patches around first thing this morning, but these will quickly burn back because there'll be plenty of sunshine around. Lots of bright blue skies on offer as we head into the afternoon. A bit more cloud towards Shetland, a little bit of rain here, and elsewhere 1 or 2 showers possible. Most places staying dry and in the sunshine, feeling even warmer than yesterday. Highs of around 24 or 25 Celsius. Little change as we go through this evening and overnight. It is going to stay settled. A lot of the cloud will actually clear away, so clear skies for many of us, though some low cloud pushing in from the North Sea across some eastern parts, and elsewhere a few pockets of mist and fog are possible. Temperatures generally dropping to high single figures or low double digits. We start Saturday on a fine note for many places, though quite cloudy towards eastern parts. Again, any mist and fog will quickly burn back, and then once more another largely fine day for many of us. Just watch out for the potential for some showers to develop over high ground towards northern England, and some of these could be heavy. Temperatures even higher than today for some of us, highs of around 25, possibly 26 Celsius. On Sunday, there's the risk of some showery rain, which could turn heavy, possibly thundery, developing across western parts. Further east, however, it's likely to stay largely dry. Again, plenty of sunshine here, and temperatures could get even higher with highs of 26 or 27.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Now it's time for our giveaway, and we actually want to say a big congratulations to Jake from London, who won the last Great British Giveaway. And this is when we called him to tell him that he was a winner.
Jake, I've got some really good news for you. You're the winner of the Great British Giveaway.
No, I'm not. What?
You are. You've won the cruise, the travel gifts, and you've also won £10,000.
Do you know what? I've never won anything like this in my life.
Well, congratulations.
Yes, I wasn't expecting that.
How does it feel?
I'm in shock. Like I said, I've never won anything like this, and I almost didn't. It didn't pick up.
You see, it's always worth answering your phone.
Yeah.
Obviously, that cruise is for 2 people, so I don't know who you're going to take.
Well, I think my partner would be quite annoyed if I didn't take her.
Well, we hope you enjoy your cruise, Jake, whoever you take with you.
Yeah, better be the girlfriend.
Better be the girlfriend. That was a prize worth £20,000, and you could be in our next winner. £20,000 in tax-free cash. It's the biggest cash prize so far. Here's how you could make it yours.
It's the biggest cash prize we've given away to date. An incredible £20,000 that you could use however you like. And because it's totally tax-free, every single penny will be in your bank account to do whatever you like with. £20,000 in tax-free cash really could be yours this summer. But you've got to be in it to win it. For another chance to win £20,000 in tax-free cash, text WIN to 63232. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB05 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 31st of May. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Never mind the money, you too could get a call from Mark Dolan.
Yeah.
He's
it's
never
worth
wrong.
picking up the phone.
He's never wrong me, Mark Dolan.
Is he not?
No.
Oh, well, there's still time.
Still time.
Still time. Now, a new law change could see cat owners fined if they don't get their pets microchipped. We're going to be talking about that next.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel. In the quaint Derbyshire village of Sudbury, there's a storm brewing between the local football club and the National Trust. This grass field might seem unremarkable, but for hundreds of years it's been part of the Sudbury Hall estate, playing host to the village football and cricket matches. Now the National Trust are planning to put an end to that tradition in the name of biodiversity, with plans for trees and plants where the football club play. Some worry it breaks a memorandum of wishes from the late Lord Vernon, whose family have lived here since 1660. Manager of Sudbury FC Tom Crutchley says he's upset at the decision.
Naturally disappointed. We've been here, this is our 9th year. We've put a lot of effort into here to keep playing, to maintain it. I'm from the village originally, so personally it was it is very upsetting.
MP for Derbyshire Dale Sarah Dines says the National Trust aren't respecting the history of the site.
I feel they're trampling over the wishes of historic owners who gave up this wonderful site for the nation. And for over 100 years people have played football and cricket here. It's incredibly sad. Incredibly sad, and it's against the wishes of a lot of people locally who've written to me from the village.
Sudbury Hall lives under the branding of the Children's Country House, a decision which Dines says is disrespectful to the history of the estate.
I mean, this is fake to make it into a children's theme park. It's almost a reimagining, and in fact that's the very words it says on their website. The house is reopened, it's been reimagined. I don't want our heritage to be reimagined. I think the National Trust has been captured by people who have different ideas than most people in this country.
Whilst the public will still be able to roam these historic grounds, the village feels like a legacy is being snatched away. Jack Carson, GB News, Sudbury.
GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio, and online.
This is GB News,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQs Live here on GB News.
Whenever Parliament is in session on a Wednesday at midday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions. We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQs Live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
Now, are you up to scratch on the latest pet ownership laws? Well, you might be forgiven for getting a new change that will require all cats to be microchipped.
Yes, there are at least 2 million furries running around unchipped, and many owners are unsure on where to start.
I think we better speak to a veterinary.
We are going to speak to a veterinary surgeon, Amelia Battersby. Good to see you this morning, Amelia. Lots of people will be very surprised that this wasn't the law in the first place.
Yes, it's something we've been campaigning for many years. It became the law for dogs to be microchipped in 2016, and we saw a significant increase in the number of times we were able to successfully reunite missing dogs with their owners. And yes, it's about time we catch up for our feline pets, because they're just as important, to be honest.
I just don't understand why there would be any opposition to this. I mean, I know there is a cost. However, if you love your cat and they go missing, you want to get them back.
Absolutely. And I think there are a lot of misconceptions about microchipping. Firstly, I think for a lot of people, it just slips their mind. There's so much to think about when you get a new kitten. There's so much going on, and microchipping often gets forgotten. There's also a misconception that worries me personally, that indoor cats or cats that only go out with supervision don't need to be microchipped or aren't at risk of going missing. And actually, the unexpected happens all the time. You get a visitor, they leave the front door open, a loud bang startles your cat, and they shoot out the door. And often it's those cats that are more at risk of getting lost because they just don't have the street smarts of our outdoor cats. So we would really urge everybody to take heed of the new law, which is 1 month to go today, and to really make sure that they get their cats microchipped and that their microchip details are up to date as well on the database.
And it is so important as well, Amelia, isn't it, for cats that do go outside? They do have a tendency to wander, don't they? And sometimes they can forget their way home.
Absolutely, and we know from really interesting research that cats can have a huge territory area that they go wandering. Some cheeky cats can even have multiple houses that they like to go into for food. And we do often see sad stories where cats are also brought into our practice after an accident, and a kind member of the public has brought them to us and we try and help them, but because the microchip isn't there, we can't let their owners know what's happened, and that's really upsetting for everybody involved, and obviously something we want to avoid at all costs.
If anyone is looking at this and going, oh, my cat isn't done, I need to get it done, from what age? How much does it cost? And does it hurt?
So the law requires every cat over the age of 20 weeks of age to be microchipped, but it can be done much younger than that. Lots of people like to combine getting the microchip done with when we get them neutered at the vets, because that makes it nice and straightforward. We have put together a website, a microchipping hub with loads of information on our Pet Health Club website, and that has loads of questions answered for you about what to expect when you go to the vets. And our Pet Health Club is a great way of covering everything your cat needs, really. We take care of all of that for you, and microchipping is one of those benefits. To answer your question, it doesn't hurt in my experience. It's a slightly bigger needle than the vaccination, and it's lightning quick. It's the same speed as giving a vaccination, very, very quick, and they often don't notice it's been done, and then the benefits last a lifetime.
Yeah, absolutely. Amelia, good to see you. Thank you very much indeed. I wouldn't have any animal that wasn't chipped.
No, neither would I.
Because it's, I mean, I don't know what it costs now. Can't remember. 35, £70 is in my head for some reason, but I mean, it's going to vary vet to vet anyway.
Yeah.
But it's done then, and then you see you've got the database, you can get online and make sure your details are up to date.
And you've got peace of mind then, haven't you, really?
Once it's paid for, there's no ongoing costs or anything else, and then it's just done.
Yeah.
Should they wander, then you just scan them. The vet just scans them, and away you go. Then you're reunited.
Exactly. And how lovely was it to see all of the cat videos?
Oh,
that was my favourite part of that interview. I could just watch cats all day. Makes me miss Mittens, who used to come and visit me last year.
Yeah, so you were a second home,
I was a
weren't
second
you?
home, yeah. And I really set up a good home for her. She had a bed, she had food, she had toys. I even got her a stocking at Christmas.
Soft devil.
And
Look
she's
at that.
yet to come back to me.
I mean, honestly, I'm a proper cat man. I know I've got the dog as well as a cat, but in my heart, I am a cat man.
They are so cute, aren't they?
I love our Timmy. He was very cuddly last night, which is what you like.
They are lovely, aren't they? And it means more from a cat because they're not always cuddly, you know?
Yeah.
Anyway, we're going to go to a short break, think about cats, and when we come back, Aidan McGee is going to be here with all of the latest sports news.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. On the M1 in Derbyshire, the inside lanes closed southbound just after junction 30 at Worksop after an accident causing long delays. On the M1 in Northamptonshire, 2 out of 4 lanes are closed southbound just after junction 18. The A5, A428 Rugby terminals accident with queues towards and past there. On the M25 in Hertfordshire, there's a lane closed on the clockwise exit at junction 23 for the A1 where someone's broken down. There are queues from junction 22 near St Albans. Also on the M25 in Kent, there's a lane closed clockwise at junction 5 for the M26 after a lorry broke down. Queues from junction 4 at Orpington and back along the M26 towards there, not helped by roadworks, and on the M26 there's a lane closed where someone's broken down between junction 2A at Rootham and the M25. And in Bridgend, the A464 is closed each way between Pantydog and Pontaril after an accident. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threat and so on.
Our job is to do what's in the best interest of our country.
You made my argument for me.
My guests and I tackle the issues that really matter, with a sharp take on every story.
I'm hearing it up and down the country. That was a beginning, not an end.
Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry, Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
Friday nights on GB News with Dubes & Co from 6, followed by Lee Anderson's Real World at 7. At 8, it's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. And at 9, join Patrick Christie's Tonight, followed by Headliners at 11, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg and this is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mark's been in touch. Morning, Mark.
Morning, Mark.
Who says about the cats.
Oh, yeah.
He said, I swallowed some tablets meant for the cat the other day. Don't ask me how. Very good. Aidan McGee liked that one, didn't he?
Yeah, it's an Aidan McGee special, that one.
I'm borrowing that one, definitely.
Yeah, it's very good. Very good. Well done, Mark. Well done, Mark. Right, should we have a bit of football?
Yes, sorry.
Oh, it's
I was going to say that Aston Villa went to Greece last night and their Europa League conference challenge is in ruins, but I can't compete with it.
Oh, very good, very good.
No, look, let's look at it. I mean, they were 4-2 down from the first leg, Stephen. They went to Greece last night. They lost 2-0. There wasn't much of a hope they were going to turn it around, I don't think. But let's look at the season in its entirety. I don't think secretly that bothered that they got knocked out last night. There's extra games on the schedule. They've got Liverpool this weekend. They're in the top 4 in the Champions League. They played better last night. But if they get into the Champions League, that'll be the first time they've got into the European Cup since the year after they won it in 1982-83. So that would be absolutely extraordinary for them. Pity they didn't win a trophy last night. Didn't get to the final because they hadn't won trophies since '96. But overall, I don't think there's any cause for worry at Villa Park. I think they're very satisfied with the season they are having, and I think they'll qualify for the Champions League.
Should we talk about Man U?
Why not? Yes. So look, so Jim Ratcliffe went into United a couple of weeks ago, did an audit of all the facilities. He said that the IT department and some of the training facilities were disgraceful. And that caused, according to the papers this morning, a bit of consternation within the club. That people are looking for recriminations, they're pointing at each other, saying, well, hang on a minute, well, you need to be doing your job properly. And it probably isn't creating the environment that's going to be conducive to producing champions. And this is all going on as well, while last night in Manchester you had a nice red carpet event celebrating 25 years of the treble, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and all that. David Beckham was in attendance, Gary Neville, Paul Scholes, Nicky Butt. And we saw some... in some ways, Stephen, it's not helpful because although they've earned the right to celebrate that, it doesn't look good in the context of what's going on at Man United now because the club is in a real mess. And there are players, according to David McDonnell in the Mirror this morning, who believe they may not win another game again this season. If you look at their fixtures, Arsenal home on Sunday at 4:30, big game there in the title race. Newcastle at home, Brighton away, Man City at Wembley in the FA Cup final. Now, they could lose, if they lose that, it's 2 years in a row that they've lost to Manchester City. They're bitter rivals. And that's the other thing. There's one thing contrasting with Manchester City across the city. But if you're contrasting what you were achieving yourselves as a club 25 years ago, you're being exposed. You're being exposed, and it's not good.
Let's have a quick look at Nadal, should we?
Yes, absolutely. Well, I mean...
qualifying for the French Open.
Well, no, it's not qualifying. Well, it kind of is. It kind of is. The Italian Open is it's not a warm-up tournament, it's a big tournament, but he's won it 10 times. And when he gets to the French Open, who knows, he could be timing his arrival in Paris at just the right time. It's going to be his last year on the tour, we believe. He's had horrific injury problems in the last 2 years. In fact, he's been beset by injuries throughout his career, actually, but he's managed to win 22 Grand Slam titles. He came from behind yesterday, beating Zizou Bergs, the Belgian qualifier, and it's still early yet at the moment, but if he can just navigate his way through that tournament, he's going to be in great shape by the time he gets to the French Open, and he could win that for a 14th time. He's known as the King of Clay, and he could cement that title.
OK. Aidan?
No, he's known as the King of Clay.
Yeah, no, it's the cementing the title. I was laughing at.
There you go.
I didn't even know he was doing
that
it. No, Aidan, thanks very much.
Thanks, Aidan.
Good to see you.
Susan's been in touch saying microchipping a cat is only a money maker. The cat will be distressed at the vet. I don't think they would be distressed at the vet. And even if they were, it's only momentarily. But as for money, loads of you have been in touch, actually. I was right. 70 quid is about what it costs to get the cats neutered.
Yes.
I'm getting the two confused
Microchipping's
in my head.
very cheap. It's about £15.
About 15 to 30 quid.
It's not too bad.
So that's actually all right. And some places will do it for free, like the...
And Amelia, our vet, was saying that they didn't know how to talk. She?
No.
So most of them don't even realise it's happening.
No, I mean, they don't
So
like injections and things. Of course they don't. But...
Try being you and me, Stephen, eh?
Oh, well, exactly. We have to inject constantly, don't we?
Absolutely.
At least we know what's going on. Well, cats don't know what's going on.
We're just hard.
Oh, yeah, we're really tough. Diabetics are really tough.
Now, still to come, we'll be going through the papers with Mike Buckley and Suzanne Evans. That's next.
We're GB News, and we come from a proud tradition of British journalism.
That's why I'm so excited to be here. It's something so new.
The first news channel to be launched in Britain in over 30 years.
Launched to represent the views of the British people. To go where other broadcasters refuse to go.
How did you find out about the story in the first place?
Launched with one aim.
To be the fearless champion of Britain.
It's an absolutely fantastic atmosphere here.
This is GB News.
GB News, Britain's news channel.
Dubes & Co. Weekdays from 6 p.m.
Organisations, plural, because there's loads of people doing this. The organisations are charging schools to be part of this odd league table about who's trying to outdo who when it comes to who is more trans-inclusive with the kids than the next person. There's something that makes me uneasy about this.
Supposing a child comes home and says, you think, oh, I've done well today. He said, well, how have you done? He said, well, I was #1 painter, or I was #1 reader. No, I wasn't. I was made LGBT champion. This is a 4- and 5-year-old. Look, I can understand this, actually, as we develop into the secondary school. I can understand more debates taking place. I cannot understand why we have to thrust it at young children. And I think if you ask the parents, they'd be hostile to it. And what about the role the teacher has to play in all this?
Society has been one way, the pendulum is swinging the other way, and they're pushing it very far in order to kind of proliferate change. And this is probably the toughest period in that evolutionary process, because the LGBTQ+ community is saying that you've got to really rage against the machine to get people to listen. Because put it like this now, even this conversation, the whole country is listening, the whole world is listening. These are the kinds of eyeballs and ears they haven't had before. And there's going to be friction. There's going to be a locking of heads in the process to getting to a point where you establish a new equilibrium where they feel more incorporated. Like I've said, the greatest force of allies that the LGBTQ+ community has always had is heterosexual women. What you're moving towards now is doing things that is beginning to turn them from allies into people who feel that, oh, for you to thrive, I'm being deprived, and that's a problem. When they realise you're alienating allies, they will understand you've got to recalibrate to have that kind of understanding between both parties.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQ's live here on GB News.
Whenever Parliament is in session on a Wednesday at midday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions. We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
Well, welcome back to Breakfast. Time is 8:46. We're going through the papers now with Labour advisor Mike Buckley and political commentator Suzanne Evans. Good to see you both this morning. And Mike, let's start with our favourite story of the day. This is superstar 9-year-old Tony Hudgell.
So, I mean, this is a great heartwarming story. So, 9-year-old little boy, very sadly double amputee, both of his legs, was meant to go to the garden party at the Palace on Wednesday, but wasn't able to go because there was an issue on the M20, so he wasn't able to make it. So he had to go turn tail and go home.
Oh, God,
so I was obviously quite sad about that. But happily, one of his parents posted on social media that this had happened on X, I think formerly Twitter, and the Palace tweeted back to say, "Oh, sorry to miss you, Tony. We'll find another date, come another time." So he's going to go back to the Palace and see the King and everybody else. So it's a great heartwarming story for a lovely little boy. And he was going because he's been given an award by the King. He's raised £1.4 million, this little boy, for kind of activities against child abuse, which is incredible by the age of 9.
It's phenomenal, isn't it? And also the fact he said he wanted to see the King because he wanted to check he was all right.
I know, which is just really sweet, isn't it?
Yeah, speaking a day after the disappointment, he said he was now excited to meet the King because he's always wanted to see him. I wanted to see if he's OK. I'd heard he'd had some treatment.
It's wonderful, isn't it? This poor little kid has been through so much because he received his injuries as a result of appalling abuse. And yet there he is, wanting to check that our King is OK. What an absolute darling.
Yeah. Wonderful.
I hope he gets the full red carpet royal treatment.
I think he will. It won't be waiting for another garden party. I think His Majesty will have him in for a special
I
visit.
hope so.
He needs an honour, doesn't he?
Well,
he's got one.
British
Yeah, they're giving him one. That's where he was going.
Good on him.
Yeah.
He's already raised £2 million. He's only 9 years old.
What a little star. I'm thinking of others before him. So I have to say, after what he's been through.
Yeah.
Mind you, from the very young to the very old, Suzanne, looking at it in the mirror.
Yes, the Mirror's got a lovely story about World War II veteran Ivor Ward, who is 98 and still working at the pharmaceutical factory he started work at when he was 80. He said he retired when he was 79. He spent one day retired. It drove him nuts. And he got straight back to work.
That's great.
Yeah, he says, I couldn't stand being retired. He said, I carried on working. He said, I now meet lots of younger people and we drink, dance and create mayhem at the weekends.
Good on him.
That probably keeps him young.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think, if he retired now, I think, well, he obviously did try when he was 79 and didn't work for him.
Finish him off, probably.
I think
some people,
probably. There is
people are like that.
I think some evidence to suggest that the later you retire, if you retire earlier, you tend to live longer. But you retire later, you don't. But if you keep on working, you do.
Yeah.
You'd think you'd have a job that's a little bit easier to do, though. You can imagine working in a factory being tough
I don't know, it depends what he does. I mean, I think, if you're on a factory production line, you're doing the same thing. It's quite repetitive and maybe a bit dull, but you've got people around you, you can talk.
Oh, you have a chin
You don't have to think too hard.
I used to work in a factory, like in a shoe factory.
Did you?
And it's all about the conversation. The work's dull, but the conversation's good.
Oh, but can you multitask?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Well, they're nice shoes. Sorry, I like shoes.
Yes, well, they were. I think we made them for. It was an independent factory, but I think we made a lot of them for Clarks and things. Yeah, it was nice. There were some lovely ladies I worked with there.
Oh, really? Were you one of the girls?
I was one of the girls. No, but I was. But they were the chatty ones. The lads weren't as
you
chatty.
like a good chat.
I do like a good chinwag.
So you'd be one of them, for sure.
No, it was good.
Oh, dear. Mike, should we return to the King? He's happy to be out of his cage.
He is. So obviously he's been having cancer treatment, as we all know, and it does seem like he's on the mend from the mood music that we're receiving, which is great news. So he's been allowed back to work, basically. So he was out this week, said he was glad to be out of his cage. He went to visit a military establishment and had a great time chatting to people, as you can see by the images that we're seeing now. So it's great to see him back in work, and I think after the worries that we've all had for his health and future, it's good to see him out and about and clearly heading in the right direction health-wise.
Because we don't know what he's going through treatment-wise.
No, we don't.
Or quite where he is at. I mean, it won't all be done and dusted by now. That's
No, I'm sure it won't. And you're right, we don't know. I mean, clearly he's getting on. I think he's 75, isn't he? So he's undergoing treatment. I'm sure he'll be getting the best treatment available. But the fact that he's out and about and looking as well as he looks is, it is hopeful for us all. But of course, we don't have a final. He hasn't been given the all clear as yet.
But what he is doing, which reminds me of Tony Hudgell, that little 9-year-old boy, is that despite what he's going through, he's putting people before himself. which I think is such a wonderful example.
It is, it's wonderful. I would imagine as well that probably, I'm sure there have been studies done that show that correlates with higher survival rates and higher recovery rates because, so we're all interconnected beings, aren't we? And our emotions and our intentions are connected to our physical health.
Suzanne, can we talk about the new Bridget Jones film, please?
We can indeed. The fourth Bridget Jones movie is being filmed. Are you bored with this already, Steve?
Honestly.
Well, it's being filmed in London. Renée Zellweger's been spotted in London. It's due out early next year. But now you're listening carefully because this is a bit complicated. So you know how Daniel Cleaver, played by Hugh Grant, died in Bridget Jones's Baby?
Yeah,
apparently.
I didn't.
In a plane.
I haven't seen that one.
Apparently, that's right. Well, apparently now he's come back to life for this form. But Mark Darcy, played by Colin Firth, is dead in this one. So it's all a bit confusing. Apparently, Bridget is now a single mum of 2, but she turns out to be a bit of a cougar in this film,
Oh, for
apparently.
heaven's sakes.
She's dating a toy boy who's played by the British actor Leo Woodall, who's a bit gorgeous. He was the lead in One Day, you might remember. Played Dexter Mayhew in One Day.
So
you're across the details.
Yeah, so looking forward to this one very much indeed.
I suppose we shouldn't be
mad about the boy.
We shouldn't be. If people want to be cougars, all fair play to them, I guess. I guess.
Got any interest in Bridget Jones, Mike?
I have never seen a Bridget Jones movie in all my life, so I'm really not the person to comment on this. For Bridget Jones fans, this is happy news, and I'm happy for them. And that's the most I can say on the subject. Really.
I bet one thing you have had though is a bag of chips. And Suzanne, I know Suzanne, you've put this one in the Star.
Chips. So there's a survey reported in the Daily Star, but done by a French restaurant chain. I think this is significant.
Here we go.
Saying that 62% of Brits now prefer French fries to chips.
No.
What a load of rubbish. I don't believe it for a minute. I prefer my big chip, chunky chips, big fat chips, skin on preferably, with curry sauce from the chip shop.
Oh, yeah,
you need chip shop chips. I prefer the curry sauce, but mushy peas are OK. But it's also quite shocking. This survey also reckoned that most Brits eat chips 3 times a week. Really?
Yeah.
I don't eat chips anything like that much, but 2/3 of people would eat them every day if they felt it was good, they say.
Yeah. I do love chips, but I like chip shop chips, not fries.
I'm definitely a chip shop chip person. I don't often, but when I do, it's a great treat, you know?
Oh, smash
What do you have on them?
Ketchup.
Ketchup.
Or gravy. I mean, I can't
you like a bit of gravy?
Love gravy, yeah.
Lots of salt and vinegar.
Lots of salt and vinegar, yeah.
You have gravy on them?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Chips and gravy is amazing.
I was in Scotland once, and I ordered chips, and they said, "Do you want sauce with that?" So I assumed they meant vinegar. So I said, "Yes, please." And then it came in covered in gravy. I was horrified.
Oh,
no. Well, each to their own.
I am partial to a cheesy chip as well.
Oh, I like a cheesy chip.
Melted cheese on your chips. Have you ever tried that? That's very good.
I probably have, but I wouldn't be my first choice.
You like them plain and simple?
I do, yeah. I mean, ideally with some fish, you know, that's the ideal, but it's not always available.
That is the way to do it. But there you go. That's our straw poll, and we all like chip shop chips. So if you're out there, if you're one of the 60% that prefer a French fry,
don't believe it.
Please let us know why.
Don't believe it.
I know, I'm not sure I do either.
No, proper chip shop chips. Mind, it's in my blood. My grandma and granddad had a chip shop.
Did they?
Queen Street Chippy,
It's all coming out this morning.
Oh, yeah.
By shoes and chips.
Shoes
you
and
lucky
chips.
man.
I'm a northerner. Shoes and chips.
Did you always get freebies?
No, it was before my time, before I was born.
It's annoying.
Yeah, so my dad grew up above a chip shop. Yeah.
That is the life.
Yeah.
What else could you want in life?
All his mates used to get free chips. He weren't very good business people. To give the chips away to his mates.
Oh, well, that would be me as well. Keith's been in touch saying proper chips, deep fry them in lard. That's the best.
Oh, nice. I wouldn't have the lard.
Mike and Suzanne, thank you very much indeed. Good to see you this morning.
Right, here's your weather.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning. Here's your latest GB News weather brought to you by the Met Office. The fine and often sunny weather many of us have had recently will continue for a little while yet. Yes, there are some mist and fog patches around first thing this morning, but these will quickly burn back because there'll be plenty of sunshine around. Lots of bright blue skies on offer as we head into the afternoon. There are a bit more cloud towards Shetland, a little bit of rain here, and elsewhere 1 or 2 showers possible. Most places staying dry and in the sunshine, feeling even warmer than yesterday. Highs of around 24 or or 25 Celsius. Little change as we go through this evening and overnight. It is going to stay settled. A lot of the cloud will actually clear away, so clear skies for many of us, though some low cloud pushing in from the North Sea across some eastern parts, and elsewhere a few pockets of mist and fog are possible. Temperatures generally dropping to high single figures or low double digits. We start Saturday on a fine note for many places, though quite cloudy towards eastern parts. Again, any mist and fog will quickly burn back, and then once more another largely fine day for many of us. Just watch out for the potential for some showers to develop over high ground towards northern England, and some of these could be heavy. Temperatures even higher than today for some of us, highs of around 25, possibly 26 Celsius. On Sunday, there's the risk of some showery rain, which could turn heavy, possibly thundery, developing across western parts. Further east, however, it's likely to stay largely dry. Again, plenty of sunshine here, and temperatures could get even higher with highs of 26 or 27.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. Mersey ferry commuter sailings are cancelled this morning because of low tides. There's a replacement bus running between Seacombe and Hamilton Square. On the M1 in Derbyshire, the inside lane's closed southbound, just off the junction 30. The workshop turn-off after an accident causing queues. In Kent, the A2 is blocked westbound, where there's a problem between the M25 and Dartford Heath, causing queues heading into London. On the M25 in Kent, there's a lane closed clockwise at junction 5 for the M26 after a lorry broke down. There are queues from junction 4 at Orpington and back along the M26 towards there, not helped by roadworks, and also a breakdown on the M26 between junction 2 at Rootham and the M25. In Wiltshire, the A419 is partly blocked northbound by an accident heading out of Cricklade, causing queues, and in Bridgend, the A4064 is closed each way between Pantadod and Pontaril after an accident. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
It's the biggest cash prize we've given away to date. An incredible £20,000 that you could use however you like. And because it's totally tax-free, every single penny will be in your bank account to do whatever you like with. £20,000 in tax-free cash really could be yours this summer. But you've got to be in it to win it. For another chance to win £20,000 in tax-free cash, text PRIZE to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB05 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 31st of May. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Friday nights on GB News with Dubes & Co from 6, followed by Lee Anderson's Real World at 7. At 8, it's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. And at 9, join Patrick Christie's Tonight, followed by Headliners at 11, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Good morning to you. It is 9 o'clock on Friday, the 10th of May. Today, the Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer will unveil plans to use anti-terror laws to combat small boat crossings.
We have to go after the criminal gangs. They are undermining border security and putting lives at risk with these dangerous boat crossings, and that's why this action is so urgently needed.
Brexit architect Dominic Cummings plans to create a new party that he hopes will replace the Tories.
Yes, Dominic Cummings thinks the Conservatives are dreadful and Labour pretty much the same. He's expecting the Conservatives to be eviscerated at the next general election, and he's thinking possibly of starting a new party. I'll bring you the details shortly.
A judge denies Donald Trump's request for a mistrial in his hush money case as Stormy Daniels concludes her testimony.
3 Boeing plane crashes in just 2 days, calling into question the aircraft manufacturer's safety record.
And are your cats feline chipper? A new change in the law could see owners fined if you don't get your pets microchipped.
Morning. The fine weather's going to stick around for a little while yet, but it's not set to last through the whole weekend. I'll have more on that coming up.
Good morning to you. I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Ellie Costello, and this is Breakfast on GB News.
Chips have got you going.
Oh, yeah.
Because apparently
Thought they would.
this new survey saying 62% of us prefer French fries to chips.
We don't know who they were asking, to be honest, do we?
Rubbish. Anyway, Mike Johnson's been in touch. He likes his own air fryer chunky chips, vinegar, salt and pepper, lemon juice, olive oil. Leave the skins on.
Oh, no, I'll give you my recipe.
Go on.
So you get a bowl, you chop your potatoes, throw them in the bowl. Olive oil, paprika, salt, pepper, bit of garlic. Whisk it all up in the air fryer, 15 minutes. Stunning.
Are they that good?
They're like a Cajun chip.
Do you not have to parboil them?
No. It works perfectly for me. And they're quite healthy, you know.
Yeah.
Like Slimming World chips.
Well, yeah.
They're not quite fish shop chips, don't get me wrong, but they're good. So that's my recipe.
Yeah.
We also had one from Sharon, who says, why is there so much horror at chips and gravy? It's a northern thing. You would have gravy with roast potatoes, wouldn't you? That's a fantastic point.
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't...
I wouldn't have it on chips, though.
I don't... Well, I know I don't have it on chips. I like either curry sauce or mushy peas. Or even both. I'm going all out. Both.
Yeah,
We've got to stop talking about food.
I know, because this is what happens. Then I go home and then I want
chips
and chips for dinner. And that's what ends up happening.
Yeah.
Chips with mayo. Yes, that's a real thing. I can't eat chips without mayo now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I got into it in my first job. I was a waitress. Actually, it was my second job. I was a waitress. And they used to serve chips with mayo. And now I can't eat it without it.
Oh, really?
It's very bad for you.
You were working as a waitress in a cocktail bar when I first met you.
When I met you.
Anyway, that's another story entirely. Right, let's crack on, should we? 3 minutes past 9. Labour's set to launch plans to tackle the small boat crisis today.
Yes, in a major speech, Sir Keir Starmer will unveil proposals for stronger new counter-terror powers that will effectively treat people smugglers like terrorists.
Well, the plan's supported by about 1,000 additional officers recruited by, wait for it, MI5.
Well, to do this, Labour will spend £75 million, equating to a year that would have been spent on sending migrants to Rwanda.
Well, earlier we spoke to the Shadow Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper.
Rwanda scheme is a scheme just for 1% of asylum seekers. There's no plan for the 99%, and it's costing the taxpayer over £500 million. That is a huge sum of money for just a tiny number of people, and that's why we think that money should go into boosting our border security and going after the criminal gangs instead.
Well, joining us now is our political correspondent, Catherine Forster. Good to see you this morning, Catherine. It's what we've been waiting for, isn't it? This is Labour's plan to tackle the small boats crisis.
Yes, good morning, Stephen and Ellie. Yes, the Conservatives plan to stop the boats, emblazoned on so many of Rishi Sunak's lecterns, is not going very well, is it? Nearly 9,000 people have crossed the Channel illegally so far this year. But the Conservatives have been very fond of saying, but Labour have no plan. Well, today, Labour are laying out their plan, and basically it involves trying to crack down on the people smugglers, so stopping people making these illegal crossings in the first place, rather than the Conservatives attempt to round them up and pack them off to Rwanda. Of course, Yvette Cooper saying that that's a plan that will only apply to 1% of asylum seekers. Rishi Sunak has pledged to send multiple flights off to Rwanda this summer. So let's see how that goes. Labour are saying that they will scrap that plan if they get into power, but crack down on the people smugglers, hiring 1,000 new officers recruited by MI5, the National Crime Agency and the Border Force, working more closely with the European Union. And I have to say, there's quite a bit of support for this scheme. People like David Neal, who was until very recently the head of the UK Borders Watchdog, is behind it, as is David Neal. Now, he is the head of UK counter-terrorism police, and he's worked with Labour on these plans. So some support. I think it will be difficult if and when flights do go to Rwanda. I think the optics of scrapping that might be problematic, but let's see what happens. But I think it just does emphasise how difficult this is. And, you know, there's an election coming. The Conservatives look set to lose it very comprehensively. At the moment, Labour say they have a different plan, but really, you know, people just want these crossings to stop. All of this will take a lot of time to get into motion. And meanwhile, people are crossing the channel, making those dangerous crossings, costing the taxpayers a fortune, and no sign of that ending anytime soon.
Talking about the election, Catherine, I mean, polls suggest either from anything from a hung parliament to the Conservatives being absolutely obliterated. And the big question is, does that leave room for a new party? Because it seems Dominic Cummings fancies creating one.
Yes, indeed. Remember Dominic Cummings. He of the crossed the whole country when he had COVID with his family, then went to Barnard Castle to test his eyesight before journeying back. That astonishing press conference in the garden, there was so much outrage, wasn't there? He didn't really apologise. But, you know, he was a huge figure behind the scenes. He is one of three people, along with Boris Johnson and Nigel Farage, that were crucial to people voting for Brexit. He came up with that slogan, take back control. And in the first months of Boris Johnson's government, there's many people say that he was the power behind the throne. They fell out very spectacularly at the end of 2020, and they haven't spoken since. But he is very fed up with the Conservatives. He thinks they're absolutely dreadful. He's got no time for Labour either. He's given an interview and he said that Labour will not alter the trajectory much and that everyone will be even more miserable by 2026 than they are now. So something to look forward to. And his answer, potentially, is a new party. He thinks that he might like to start a new party if the Conservatives are reduced to having less than 100 MPs after the next election, which he thinks is possible. And he promises that that would offer something completely different.
OK, Catherine Forster, good to see you this morning. Thank you very much indeed.
Now, the former porn star Stormy Daniels has concluded her testimony at Donald Trump's hush money trial, fighting off all inquiries into her account of the alleged sexual encounter between her and the man who would be president.
Well, it follows a scathing attack by the judge who blamed Trump's lawyers for letting Daniels describe lurid details as he denied Trump a mistrial for the second time this week.
Well, earlier we spoke to US political analyst Eric Ham.
Said was pretty striking. He says that, look, you actually brought this up when you said in your opening that Donald Trump did not have an affair with this woman. So therefore, it was only right for her to go into detail to describe her relationship to actually paint for the jury that, in fact, this did happen. And he did say that, and he admonished Donald Trump's lawyers that they could have actually objected to many of the things that were said by Stormy Daniels. I do believe that depending on what happens with the verdict, I do believe that we perhaps will see an appeal by Donald Trump's lawyers looking specifically at some of the things that, of course, we heard from Stormy Daniels during her time when she provided testimony.
Did we hear anything new from Stormy Daniels in this testimony, or was it more about adding context to this case?
No, we did not. This was the first time, of course, that we actually heard her at a criminal trial under oath actually testifying. And of course, again, the jury, and I think that's the most important thing we have to recognize here, they actually got a chance to see how, in fact, she would hold up to the scrutiny being cross-examined by Donald Trump's lawyers about this relationship that she had with Donald Trump. But again, this is a case about falsifying business records. And so while we know that it was definitely a spectacle to hear from Stormy Daniels, the central issue of this case is, did in fact Donald Trump actually falsify business records? It's clear that Donald Trump actually paid Stormy Daniels $130,000, but that's not what he's on trial for, and that is not actually what he's being tried for, and what he will be convicted for ultimately. And right now, I think the prosecution still has this burden that they have to actually show that Donald Trump did in fact falsify these records.
Why was there another call from his team for a mistrial?
Well, again, I think that's pretty much par for the course for a defense that would actually ask for a mistrial. I think what we saw today was they thought that there were some holes in Stormy Daniels' testimony, which is why they believe that much of the information that she provided not only was prejudicial, but also I think what we saw from them is that they think that she went over the line in describing this relationship she had with Donald Trump.
And Eric, just briefly, because we are running out of time, but how would you say this is affecting Donald Trump personally and in the polls?
Well, in the polls, it's having a tremendous effect. We are now seeing that Joe Biden is leading in the polls in another key battleground state of Wisconsin. And so the more Donald Trump stays off the campaign trail, the more difficult it is for him to be able to find some distance between him and Joe Biden as we head into November.
That's Eric Ham speaking to us a little bit earlier on in the programme.
All right, we've got a big show heading your way at 9:30 this morning. Ben and Nana are poised, ready to go.
And ready to pounce.
What have you got for us today, you two?
We're going to be going live to Sir Keir Starmer's big speech in Dover about his plans to stop the boats. Very interesting. He's basically relying on the EU cooperation. And I argue that the EU hate us. Why would they want to help? We already give France $500 million a year. Instead of stopping the boats, they go off and have shots at working men's clubs. And also, it seems like the war on drugs. You're going to go after the gangs who are just going to replicate themselves and keep coming. All the while, the small boats will keep crossing the channel.
But I mean, look, he thinks this plan's going to work. I can't wait to hear him actually lay down some sort of proper, firm policy. He also said he's going to scrap Rwanda, even if it's working, although we know there are elements of Rwanda that appear to be working. And he will need...
deterrent. The Irish are already saying it's working.
Well, exactly. He will need a third country, so I'm interested to find out what he's going to do about that.
And also, surprise, surprise, the Bank of England's chief economist, Hugh Pill, says that migration is fuelling the housing crisis, which I find totally ironic. You have all the young students who are open borders, pro-mass migration, and then the next day they complain about not being able to get houses or buy homes. So who would have thought, eh?
Well, Keir said he's going to build, I think it's 1 million homes, I think, in their time in office, which is not that many when you consider the numbers of people that are coming to this country. I think it was about 745,000 on the last count, so, you know, 1 million's not going to cut it at all.
Also, is the Met Police fit for purpose? New evidence says that a third of its officers will have under 4 years of service next year. And I don't know if you watch all these copper programmes. There's one called Night Cops, based in Brighton. They're all kids. They're all 19, 20-year-old kids. So I've always said, how can you police or get a flavour for handling the public when you're fresh out of school?
They look about your age, Ben.
But then having said that, Hainault last week, the 2 officers that ran into danger, essentially, and were injured as a result, were in their 20s.
Well, the ones on, you know, sort of when I'm going home, on my way home, there's an M&S petrol station, and they all hang out there. There's loads of police cars and everything. They all come out of the cars, and they come out to buy their stuff or whatever they're doing.
It's like a social.
They look so young. And I thought, and I saw them the other week, and I thought, oh my God, they look so young. But then, is it just me?
That's
is it
you.
I'm an old bag.
You are an old bag, Nana. You're an old bag, and this is what happens. And I'm afraid I'm in the same boat as you. Now, policemen and doctors all look very young, and dentists.
We're old, isn't it?
Yeah. It's terrifying when you go into dental treatment and your dentist comes in and he looks about 12.
Neither of you are old. Stop. Look at Ben chucking away in the corner there.
Yeah, it'll come to Ben as well.
So young.
He's baby-faced, isn't he?
But he's not young, he's old-ish.
Getting there.
How old are you?
I'm 35 in August.
Let's not get in there. Give over.
Feels like it. I still feel like a 16-year-old kid at heart, though.
You still look like one.
It's a good thing. I think it's a compliment, mate.
Your voice will break.
Just means I get all the,
the what?
ID. All the what? You get to go to buy alcohol.
Where are you going with this?
That?
Sorry?
Where are you going with this?
Oh, no, don't worry.
Yeah.
Let's move on.
Maybe best leave it there. We'll see you at 9:30, you two. Thank you.
Could be a disaster.
Just wondering where I was going with that.
Definitely worth tuning in for. Time for our giveaway now, and we want to say a huge congratulations to Jake from London, who won our last Great British giveaway. Mark Dolan gave him a call.
Jake, I've got some really good news for you. You're the winner of the Great British giveaway.
No, I'm not. What?
You are. You've won the cruise, the travel gifts, and you've also won £10,000.
Do you know what? I've never won anything like this in my life.
Well, congratulations.
Yes, I wasn't expecting that.
How does it feel?
I'm in shock. Like I said, I've never won anything like this, and I almost didn't. It didn't pick up.
You see, it's always worth answering your phone.
Yeah.
Obviously, that cruise is for 2 people, so I don't know who you're going to take.
Well, I think my partner would be quite annoyed if I didn't take her.
Well,
actually, I was going to say, don't panic. I've had some people who are hard of hearing message today saying, does that mean if you don't pick up the phone, you don't win the prize? No.
Oh.
Don't worry. So if they were hard of hearing, so we don't really answer the phone, and I know some other deaf people who've entered your competition, well, can they not win? Yes, you can. Don't panic.
You'll probably just get an email from Mark Dolan.
You'll get an email.
Rather than a call.
Yeah, so don't worry about it.
So you can look forward to that. Well, that's Jake there. We hope he enjoys his cruise. That was a prize worth £20,000. And you could be our next winner with £20,000 in tax-free cash. It's our biggest cash prize so far. Here's how you could make it yours.
It's the biggest cash prize we've given away to date. An incredible £20,000 that you could use however you like. And because it's totally tax-free, every single penny will be in your bank account to do whatever you like with. £20,000 in tax-free cash really could be yours this summer. But you've got to be in it to win it. For another chance to win £20,000 in tax-free cash, text WIN to 63232. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB05 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 31st of May. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Now, a Cornish MP has urged the government to provide more funding for coastal communities. We're going to be talking about that next.
GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio and online.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task. This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers.
I agree.
And that's precisely what I'll get. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
Patrick Christie's Tonight, weekdays from 9 p.m.
Today is a good day for the King, a good day for Britain. I'm sure you'll be hoping that those Not My King morons decide to give it a rest for a little while, because he is still dealing with an illness, isn't he?
He's still dealing with an illness, and he appears to be dealing extremely well. I think he comes from the fact that he's extremely strong and fit. I think I understand that will help his treatment enormously. And I think, as your professor was saying, it's the fatigue that can be a brutal thing when you're trying to lead a normal life with cancer. But I think that it's going to really help him psychologically to get out there, and people are going to be, giving him enormous support. I mean, I know, as you say, there's an anti-monarchy brigade, but there's been an anti-monarchy brigade since there's been a monarchy. So that is not such a big deal. It has always been there. I feel that Charles is going to get a lot of support from the sort of joyousness of people seeing him and, you know, wishing him well. And I think that that's going to be immensely important to him. It's a very busy time, but I think a boost for William and Kate. William's out and about. We don't know about Kate, but I feel that the King will definitely. It's a very busy time coming up with the anniversary of D-Day in Normandy, which I know he will be desperate to be a part of. Then there's the big royal season, the trooping the colour, the Garter ceremony, royal ascot, and then he is hosting the Emperor and Empress of Japan at the end of June. So it's a absolutely packed month for someone that is presumably going to get very tired.
Yes, indeed. I mean, if he gets through all of that, I think that will be absolutely massive, won't it?
Now, Cornish MPs calling on the government to pump more money into coastal communities. Steve Double says funding currently earmarked for rural communities doesn't trickle down to the coast.
Yes, he's urging the government to recognise the need for better provision in our seaside towns. Our South West of England reporter Jeff Moody reports.
Sam Richardson is a singer-songwriter from St Agnes in Cornwall. Much of his music reflects a sense of frustration with life in a coastal town.
We've got a lot of empty shops in a lot of our town centres, which is sort of causing a lot of death on the high street. I know that's a problem everywhere, but it is particularly bad down in Cornwall. I think the infrastructure as well, for me, is like a really big problem down here. Our roads are just rammed all the time.
Similar problems across the border in Devon. Ilfracombe is the most deprived area in North Devon. Twice the town has applied for levelling up funding. Twice it's been turned down, something North Devon MP Selene Saxby says is frustrating.
It's very complicated. It's not as straightforward as just throwing money at the problem. They're very deep issues. And I think, you know, the Nick Whitty report highlighted some of the health inequalities that you see around the coast, on top of some of the property challenges. I think, you know, stood here today in this wind, you can see just maintaining properties in areas like this is significantly harder.
For several years, the government has acknowledged that rural areas need extra help, but so far that help doesn't stretch to our coasts. The MP for St Austell and Newquay is pushing the government to change all this.
Truly local people are finding it really challenging because we often have sort of low-wage seasonal work, but very high house prices pushed up because of second homes and holiday lets, etc. And also, I think the disparity review that Theresa May carried out when she was Prime Minister highlighted that working-class white boys in coastal communities are some of the most disadvantaged people in the country.
Struggling to get on the housing ladder, struggling to find work, struggling to be heard.
It's interesting that a member of the party that's in the government recognises that, which is great, because it is a really important thing. But that government, for the last 10 years, has also cut £500 million in youth services around the country. So not only have you got disaffected young men searching for community, there isn't anywhere for them to go. They're finding these communities in dark areas of the internet. That's the only place that they're finding this. And when you're disaffected and you're disillusioned, it's so much more easy to become radicalized. Imagine if we could raise all of our young men to be, look, life over the last however many thousands of years has swayed towards the benefit of, white guys. And we need to make sure that we make this a more equal and progressive society. So it's your responsibility as a young male to bring people from the LGBTQ plus community into the fold and make sure that they feel safe and heard and understood. And it's your responsibility to do the same thing with women, make sure that they feel safe and understood and heard in these discussions, and not say, there's no room for you in this conversation. We're going to speak to all of the people that it involves, which is obviously great that they have a seat, but I feel like a lot of young, white, working-class lads don't feel like they have a seat at the table anymore.
No one thinks the problem of coastal deprivation can be solved overnight. The issue of disaffected young white males even harder. Jeff Moody.
That's it from us. Up next is Britain's Newsroom with Ben and Nana.
brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning, here's your latest GB News weather brought to you by the Met Office. The fine and often sunny weather many of us have had recently will continue for a little while yet. Yes, there are some mist and fog patches around first thing this morning, but these will quickly burn back because there'll be plenty of sunshine around. Lots